This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, gang? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily for a Wednesday afternoon here in the Peg. Tough one last night. A frustrating game, as I tweeted out last night afterwards in that 2-0 home loss to the Dallas Stars. But the Jets practicing today and right back at it tomorrow against the Edmonton Oilers for our second game with the Winnipeg Sports Talk crew up in Section 316 and Section 317. Going to be a really fun, busy week because we've got the game tomorrow night. Looking forward to seeing everyone that jumped on with us. If you haven't already got a ticket for tomorrow night, check out that Jets Thursday option with the $69 ticket, which includes a beer. And if you're able to choose where you're sitting, I'm not exactly sure how that works, but if you can, we'll be in that corner, Section 316 and 317. And then, of course, next Wednesday, December 6th, July 6th, we wish, December 6th, is our little holiday gathering in support of the Christmas cheerboard. If you haven't already, and podcast listeners particularly getting this afterwards, we would love to see you there. Going to be a great chance to once again get together the WST crew, talk Jets, talk Bombers, have a few of our favorite local beers from our great friends and sponsors at Little Brown Jug. Boston Pizza is going to be bringing a bunch of pies by for everybody. Nick and Nikki DQ will have some ice cream treats. We're going to have a couple really awesome draws as well. And it's every cent that is raised that night is going to go to the cheerboard. So December 6th, the link is in the description. And again, if you're listening to the podcast, get over to winnipegsportstalk.com. Grab a couple tickets, grab your friends, and hopefully we will see you there on December 6th. Obviously, right off the bat, we're going to get into last night's loss to the Dallas Stars and hear from Rick Bowness and chop that one up. And then Murat is going to join us. We'll get his thoughts on last night, as well as a big one tomorrow, which we'll be there for against the Edmonton Oilers. And if you haven't already read, Murat has just a phenomenal piece in The Athletic that dates back to like last January when this started on the burgeoning relationship between Mark Scheifele and Cole Perfetti. And it was a really interesting read. We'll talk to Murat about that as well, and the Jets over 20 games. In addition to that, Ted Wyman's going to come on the program. Lots of smoke about Buck Pierce potentially being the next head coach of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. We'll see what Ted's hearing, as well as the significance of bringing back Kyle Walters, Ted Gavaya, Danny McManus on contracts that line up with Mike O'Shea's contract up until the end of the 2025 season, which of course also includes the Winnipeg Blue Bombers hosting that 2025 Grey Cup. And then later on, Jets draft pick and Moose player Danny Zhilkin's going to jump on the program. I haven't had a chance to talk to Danny before, so we'll look forward to talk to him about his season, his background, and how things are going with the Moose so far this year. Should be a great show, and great to have you all with us. If you're live on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button already if you haven't, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And just before we get into the rest of the festivities, let me give a big thanks to the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day. Of course, our friends at the Winnipeg Jets and Little Brown Jug, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Nick and Nikki DQ, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, Vita Health Fresh Market, Modern Man Barbershop, Aquatech, Manitoba Battery, and the great taste of Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club. Welcome to everybody in chat, and welcome to you, Michael Remis. What's going on?
Feeling good, Huss. You know, wasn't a great finish to the game last night, but hey, we're here. The Jets practicing. Looking forward to so many events coming up for us. It's kind of crazy. WST night tomorrow against Edmonton, and next week the holiday party as well. So I'm still in a good mood, even if the Jets fell short against Dallas again.
Yeah, listen, God knows I've been in that building enough for games of all types, and that was one that, as I tweeted afterwards, it was just a really frustrating game, and credit goes to the Dallas Stars. For a Jets team that had been playing so well at 5-on-5, had been generating a lot, there just wasn't a lot on either side last night, and that is a game where the margins are incredibly, incredibly thin. One goal really can make the difference between chasing it and allowing the Dallas Stars to play in a completely different style than where they are if they actually need to score. And we'll talk about this with bonus, Remo, but it was pretty simple. Without listening to the post-game show afterwards, literally just walking out of the of Section 316 last night, I fired out a tweet of what a frustrating game it was. And most of the frustration revolved around the Jets doing almost nothing with those 2 5-on-3 power plays. And in a game like that, where you're gifted 2 incredible opportunities that don't come along very often, you got to make something happen on it. As Rick Bowness said, you have to score. They didn't score, but it kind of sucks some of the momentum away as well. Just the fact that they didn't have that movement, and it felt like the power play of 3 weeks ago or so. I think the power play has been a big part of that winning streak. I think they've been looking a lot better. And they actually look better at 5-on-4 at times at 5-on-3. It is somewhat confounding. You could tell that was a bit of a burr in the saddle of Bones after the game last night.
Yeah, we've said it, earlier this season where they, you can't score on special teams. It's going to be tough to win 0 for 4 on the power play. That's the 11th time this year, Huss. Held scoreless on the power play. However, the penalty kill, perfect, 2 for 2, 7th time. And, goal suppression, it's been pretty solid, Huss. In the last 5 of the last 6, 2 or less, the opponent have scored. So you knew it was going to be tough against Dallas. And, yeah, not a ton of, high-quality chances to start. Nemestikov kind of had one. Morrissey had a couple in the game. He played a team high, 28, 19 of ice time, Hassan. He had a couple coming down the middle, but not a ton there. And you're down 1-0, and Dallas kind of just sat back and waited for the Jets to come. I don't know what you thought of the review, Huss, on Dallas's first goal. I still can't figure out how the puck, it looked like Robertson shot it, and the puck just ended up on Hintz's stick, and Pavelski tries to get position in front, and his stick kind of love-tapped Hellebuyck, I don't know, on the shoulder, on the mask. They reviewed it. It didn't, still counted, but look, we saw James Neal two-hand Hellebuyck in the mask a couple years ago. So this was nothing. I don't think it was enough to overturn if they're going to count James Neal breaking his stick on Hellebuyck's mask. I think I guess Hellebuyck, look, you got to trust your guy, and he's always, you know how he feels about guys getting close to him. But I don't know if there's enough to overturn, but I think, look, if a stick touches mask, you got to challenge it, right?
Yeah, in that situation, I didn't have a problem with the challenge, even though I did think it was probably unlikely. I thought there was a legitimate chance that they could have had it overturned. They do say they want to protect the goalies, and, if a guy's stick hits a goalie in the head right before a goal comes in, I think there's a chance that that's called goaltender interference. But in the way the game had went, 0-0 for whatever, basically the first half of the game, you don't get much, if anything, on that power play. Although I guess Ottinger made one crazy save, as did Hellebuyck when the Jets were shorthanded. So it was a soft. But then when that one goes in, you have to have confidence in your PK that you'll be able to kill the penalty, which they did if they were unsuccessful for the challenge. And, we were right up on top of Helly in that corner. And as soon as the goal went in, he looked at the ref and started pointing to his mask. So in some ways, maybe that's an investment in confidence in your goaltender as well. I didn't think it was a completely frivolous challenge. And maybe I'd feel different if Dallas went right out and scored a power play goal and all of a sudden it went from 0-0 to 2-0. But it didn't. So I understood why the coaches did challenge that. And I think it also goes to something we'll hear from Rick Bowness. You knew the way that game had gone up until that point, that the first goal was going to be absolutely crucial, playing against a team with the style that was enacted by the Dallas Stars last night. And if you got a chance to take that one off the board, I think you take it. It just didn't work out for the Winnipeg Jets, but credit to them, they did kill the power play.
Yeah, credit to them. As you mentioned, 2 for 2, and I don't mind taking that shot there. But it didn't work out. And yeah, I mean, first goal between these teams, very crucial. You saw in the third period, Dallas really sitting back. And I mean, the Jets had a couple, like Morrissey was in front. Scheifele had a nice drive to the net. I think it was the second period. Ben had that chance on the toe drag. And, you come back, that was like the first time they had back and forth scoring chances. And Nino goes to Scheifele and wasn't in. Yeah, the 5-on-3s. I mean, as we said, like that's the game where you get 2 5-on-3s. You got to score. And I don't know if they had like a ton of great chances. There was a lot of standing still, hoping for something to open up. And it just didn't. Dallas played very, very solid. And, the Jets have played well all year, but go 0-2 against Dallas. I mean, these divisional games are big. You're fighting with Dallas and Colorado for, they're all, top 3. St. Louis, a couple points behind. So disappointing. I don't know if you can be like, too bummed, like the way that they played. I mean, only let in 2 goals and you couldn't score. And we'll have, a lot of teams have trouble. Jake Ottinger, he's really good, Huss. So
Ottinger was completely dialed in. I mean, it was a hell of a matchup, and I think Murat tweeted about this as well. I mean, just completely taken away, loyalties when it comes to NHL teams and who people were pulling last night watching Winnipeg and Dallas. We talk a lot about best on best. And Matt, if Canada could get either of those guys to sign on the dotted line with a Canadian citizenship, Canada would be in a hell of a lot better chance. I mean, you inevitably start talking about who the heck is our goalie going to be in best on best competition coming up and whatever this thing is next year, but potentially the Olympics, because most of the top goaltenders in the league are not Canadian right now. And we saw 2 of the best last night that in all likelihood be sort of battling 1-2 for the starting job with Team Canada. I saw someone ask in chat, like, how did the Flames score against Dallas? Well, that was another thing that I think we probably should have expected. The Stars just fell apart in the third period on Friday night. Calgary scored 5 straight after being down 4-2. They won 7-4. Team had a couple days off. Peter DeBoer wasn't happy, and he had his team dialed in for a hell of a road game. And, it wasn't like the Jets had nothing last night, and I don't think it was lopsided on either side. I saw a couple of the advanced numbers that probably gave the nod a little bit more to the Dallas Stars. But again, it was close. It was tight. And that's why it, again, comes back to the frustration of not being able to generate anything, with those 2 5-on-3s. The second one I thought was a little bit better. But that has been an issue with the Jets. And, for me, Reem, I don't know about you. I think that the power play turned around in the second loss to Vegas. They finally got off the schneid and scored a power play goal in the third period in that game. And if I recall correctly, Alex Iafallo was right in front of the net, making things very difficult for the Vegas goaltender to see. And from that point on, they moved more, they got more traffic in front, and they scored more goals and had more success. That was missing last night, especially on the 5-on-3. They were just sort of passing it around the perimeter, waiting for something to happen. And Dallas was more than willing to just stand back in that triangle, block a shot or two if the Jets wanted to just rip one. And that hurt. That hurt the team last night, and Rick Bowness said as much afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, 5-on-3s, make it one of them a game. Getting 2, us. You got to capitalize. They did have some chances. They were not able to. And Dallas not giving up much, and they got a great goalie, so nice recipe there. And I'm sure you'll learn and go on to the next one here. And the Jets still looking pretty good, huh? 7-3-0 in their last 10. Although the 2 losses in a row. That is the second time this year they've lost 2 in a row. So back to the drawing board. I did have Couple line changes today.
Well, let's get to that. Let's get to that in a minute, because that was the one. And I joke with Dusty on the Lock Shop, because obviously we're talking a lot of Jets and Oilers on a daily basis, but especially tomorrow, we'll have some rival WST and EST parlays over in the Coolbet exclusives for tomorrow night's game. But every time I talked with him about the Oilers in the first month of the season, there were new line combinations. I mean, they were searching for everything, and you pointed out a number of times. Like, we basically haven't even mentioned the lines in the last month because nothing's changed since Gabriel Vilardi got hurt and the team been playing the way that they had been. But down a goal going into the late second period into the third period, Rick Bowness finally pulled the trigger and did make a couple moves. And, we took Nikolai Ehlers off of that second line, put him up with Scheifele and Connor. It'll be interesting to get Murat's thoughts on that line change as well. Coming up in our next segment, but things really did get shaken up a little bit, and from the sounds of it, Remo, that is the way things are going to look going into tomorrow, including an interesting addition to the fourth line of Gabriel Vilardi. So maybe he won't just go right back into the top six, as Scott O'Neill said before. I think Bones kind of hedged that bet, said we wouldn't put him right in and play 20 minutes a game right off the bat. So maybe that means a period or two on the fourth line, not sure. But Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers back together, and they seem to get a little bit better throughout the game. We've seen that group before. Can they be as productive as the other incarnations of that top line goes? I guess we'll see. But I'm certainly here for it, especially against a team like Edmonton, which gives you a little bit of room to run.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about these lines for a while, mostly how they haven't changed and how they're going to finally change when Gabe Vilardi comes back, and he's finally practicing with the regular group, Axel as the extra, and he's on fourth line. And I kind of agreed with what Scott O'Neill had said. He's like, and I was like, hey, if they think that he's healthy enough to play, he's ready. Put him in. And when he said he's a top six player, I mean, if he's in the lineup, he's in the top six, and we're not going to put him back in if he's not 100% ready to go. And that kind of made sense to me, but maybe they like what they have going and don't want to shake things up too much. But I think, Ehlers and Nemestikov, I mean, have shown they've played well, and Perfetti, I mean, it's just so hard to decide which line you want to break up because they were playing well, and, maybe this Connor, Scheifele, and Ehlers can work well together, but I think for extended periods, eventually they'll get breaking up, and Vilardi was just too good complement with Connor and Scheifele to not go back to that. So they're going to have to navigate some murky waters. They are sticking this third line, Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton, which at times has actually got second line minutes. I think this is something to monitor. Lines, as you can put them together, and like after two shifts, you can be like, we're going back. So we will see how it goes. But Vilardi they're going with the ease in. So everyone who voted for ease him in on the fourth line in our comments and the chat, they're right.
Yeah, I see SK. Ehlers with KFC and Scheifele is a horrible idea, all caps. Hey, listen, they've worked it beforehand, and I'm not sure those guys really do fit as well together. Ehlers is a challenging player to play with. And the more he's played with Cole Perfetti, I just think that Perfetti is such a smart player. He understands it more about Ehlers every single game they've been together, and Nemestikov in the middle has been so good. I've got a lot of time for seeing what Vilardi would look like with those two. But I think they've got plenty of options as to who's going to play with Scheifele and Connor up on that top line. Iafallo's done an admirable job while he's there, and it is sort of crazy, Reem, that we could be talking about Iafallo going from a month on the top line to potentially that third line, because it is quite clear they do not want to touch Adam Lowry's line with Nino Niederreiter and Mason Appleton. And listen, those guys had another strong game last night, had some great cycling shifts down in, low down against Dallas, weren't able to score, much like the rest of the team last night. But I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I think you've got 10 players that clearly belong in the top 9, and 10 is more than 9. So something's got to give, and it could be Iafallo going from line 1 to line 4.
Yeah, and I kind of started to agree with Ken over the last bit. And look, it was Black Friday. finally fired up NHL 24 for that, and I played Jets GM. And when I did my Jets lines, I felt it was easiest just moving Nemesnikov down to the fourth and putting Vilardi on number 2 with Perfetti and Ehlers. And I guess you can decide who's playing center there. Is it going to be Perfetti or is it going to be Vilardi? But it is. I guess that's a good problem to have. 10 top 9 forwards for 9 spots. Someone's going to have to be the odd man. I wonder if we do see more shuffling than we had seen, because that's got to be a record, because we basically had 6 weeks of nothing changing. I mean, Kupari got injured, and maybe they moved some guys in and out, but the top 9 were basically the same, and we're going to have to see. And we did have actually some comments from Gabe Vilardi too after practice. Maybe we can play. Do you want me to read you what he said about the play here? Scott Billick actually just tweeted.
Yeah, sure.
Us.
Shout out to Billick. He'll join us tomorrow.
Yeah, he says, Gabe Vilardi, frustrated with the play that ruled him out for the past 6 weeks with an MCL sprain, called out Blake Lizotte, called it a stupid play from his former teammate. Vilardi says it wasn't an awkward fall, says Lizotte does little things like that. Little things like what? Like putting his skate behind Vilardi's leg and taking him out? Was that accurate description of what happened?
That's pretty close. And it must have been so frustrating for Vilardi. He got off to that nice start playing with those 2 star players on that top line, and then popped out, and then was out. And I still remember, I mean, that of course was our first WST game when we were all there, and that just cast a pall over the entire game, thinking, oh my God, this guy could be out for, I mean, it looked serious enough that it could have been out for much longer than this 6-week period that he's been missing. So can't wait to see Vilardi back in the lineup. It looks like that is trending towards being tomorrow, and we'll see. Maybe we'll have a little bit more Jets audio later on if it does come in. But here, let's hear from Bones. And Bones started off pretty straightforward. I think much like anyone that was there last night watching the game realized that those failed 5-on-3s were really the difference in that hockey game.
Rick, it looks like the 5-on-3s would be the story of the night. Would you say?
The story of the night. It's rare to get 1. To get 2 like we did in a low event, hard checking game. There wasn't a lot of room out there for either team. There wasn't a lot of offense being generated. When you get those 5-on-3s, you have to capitalize, and that certainly cost us the game.
Would you agree with the idea that it was a bit stagnant, and when it did start moving, that's when you guys created?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Is that what this timeout focus was about as well?
Yeah, that was what that was about. Give them a quick breather, give them a little reminder, get moving out there. We just didn't score.
I mean, obviously these are some all-world offensive players that can do so many different things. Does a 5-on-3 need to be practiced, or is it an instinctive thing you just trust them to go?
Well, it's a little bit of both. You can practice, but when you got elite players like that, you can also rely on them to create something on their own, because they're so smart. You don't want to get everything just so black and white. You've got to let them use their creativity, let them use their skills. Tonight it just didn't work.
All right, there's Bones. Not loving the 5-on-3 last night from the Winnipeg Jets. That was a small part of the game, but obviously very impactful, and 2 glorious opportunities that don't come around very often. And in such a tight game, you got to make the most of those. But Bones was asked if he played the way he wanted them to at 5-on-5 against the stingy Dallas team.
Well, the first period was pretty even. The second period, we didn't. The third period, we did. They just collapsed. It was tough to get second and third opportunities for us, but we generated a lot more in the third. Didn't generate anything in the second, which is why we switched the lines up. But then we got enough chances in that third to tie that game up. And again, with the field 5-on-3, that's in a low event game, you get 2 5-on-3s, you don't score, it's going to cost you the game.
All right, pretty straightforward from Bones. It did cost the Jets last night, and I do agree with them. I mean, they did not just get suffocated in that third period. I mean, they certainly had a lot of jump. They were bringing it. They spent a lot of time in the Dallas zone, but were not able to convert and get that elusive goal on Jake Ottinger. This was Bones onto the team's effort and chances in the third period.
in the third, they seemed like they had no interest in trying to get down the ice and press you guys. So you created a lot of opportunities, but what made it so hard to? They're giving you the zone, yet what made it so hard for you guys to get in?
We just couldn't get in, so we couldn't. We had some perimeter shots. We couldn't get in there and get that second and third whacks, and pucks were hitting the skates. One of those nights you're shooting and it hits us. The guy's not even trying to block it and it hits him. Hitting the skates, hitting sticks. It was just one of those nights the puck just wouldn't find its way through.
So they're very good, clearly, at shutting down passing lanes, same as you guys are. But what, in situations like tonight where they are shutting those lanes down even by accident, what can you do to open them up?
Well, what you have to do is score. You have to get the lead. You have to make them change the way they play. And they didn't have to because they had that 1-0 lead. And if we had tied it up with one of those five, they wouldn't be able to do what they did. They would have had to change their way. When you're playing those teams, you have to make them. You have to score to make them change the way they're playing. And we just obviously we didn't score. Jake was good in the net. He made some big saves for them.
All right, so there's Bones on the third period, and this sort of comes off of that. It's very simple, Sean. We have to score. One didn't go in the net, and Bones lamented not getting that first goal because of the importance of it in a game like that Central Division matchup yesterday.
Well, again, you score early in the other opposition. They got to open it up a little bit. They got to change a little bit of what they did. Neither team did anything in the first period. It was even. It was a chess match. There wasn't a lot of room for anybody. As soon as they got that lead, they could change the way they were playing. We were just trying to generate more, and we just couldn't do it. In the third, we did. But when you do that, if you score, they have to change the way they play. If you don't score, they're just going to keep doing what they're doing, and they're very good at it.
All right, so Bones on last night's game. One more from Bones, and this, we just sort of touched on this. The first time in a long time we'd seen any sort of changing up the lines. Nikolai Ehlers moving up with Connor and Scheifele, and some other adjustments. Here's what Bones had to say on getting the blender out for the first time in a while.
Yeah, well, we were generating in that second period, so we just flip-flop Alex and Nick, give Nick with Mark and Casey, and it worked. They were pushing them back, and they had a lot of good looks. Alex did a really good job with Vladdy and Cole. The puck just didn't go in. Doesn't mean it didn't. It worked in terms of generating more time in their zone, in terms of generating offense, in terms of coming at them more. It worked. The puck just didn't go in. It doesn't mean it didn't work.
All right, so there's Rick Bowness, and Mark Scheifele, I thought had a really strong game. He was the second star of the game last night. Obviously, was part of that 5-on-3 power play that was somewhat disappointing. But here's what Scheifele had to say about the 2-0 loss to Dallas.
I think we had a lot of chances. Ottinger made a lot of big saves. They blocked a lot of big shots. I thought we played pretty solid.
What changed on your line when Nick went up?
He made a few good plays over the blue line, handled the puck really well. His speed obviously backs a lot of guys off, and made a lot of really good plays.
All right, so there's a wrap on the Dallas game, although we will talk about it a little bit more coming up with Murat. Get ready for Edmonton and the Oilers, who have now put a few wins together, and Connor McDavid coming into the peg on absolute fire, as well as his latest piece on Scheifele and Perfetti in The Athletic. Before we do that, got a couple other thank yous to throw out for some folks that have supported the WST Movember Drive. Big thanks to June Rogoski, Matthew Honer, who said, nice stash, Derek Honer. Keep growing your mo. Saw Derek at the game last night. Shout out to Derek. And a really nice one from a great friend of ours, Joe Witherspoon. Joe and the great gang over at Consolidated Supply. Joe threw a message to the team in that, said, I've struggled with my mental health for years. WST became a part of my routine and helped me get through a really difficult time during COVID. Huss and Remo, thank you for all you do and for all of us. Don't be afraid to ask for help, friends. Cheers. Just an amazing message from Joe. Can't wait to get the Consolidated gang back on in the spring. And a big thanks to Joe and the entire team there. But a really nice donation. And we are approaching doubling our original goal, folks, of $2,000. So if you are able to make a donation, if you're with us on YouTube, there's that QR code right there. You can click on that. There's a link right in the description of this video. And if you're listening on the podcast and would like to throw in some support to the Movember movement before Thursday for Men's Health Month, do it at winnipegsports.com. There is a link as well. And of course, we're doing it all in conjunction with our friends at Modern Man Barbershops. Working on a little something for the fellas that have joined the team as well. Let you know about that next week. But Modern Man, there for you guys 365, not necessarily 24/7. 8 locations in Winnipeg, including the 2 newest locations on Pembina Highway and Plessis Road. I've been to the Pembina one a couple times, just a great spot. And the cutest dog hanging out there as well. Modern Man's got you covered, guys, with haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. Book your look via modernmanbarber.com and give them a follow on Instagram at Modern Man Barbershops. Well, the holidays are officially here. We'll be having our holiday party next week. And you know our friends at Canadian Club have a CC for every occasion for you heading into the holidays, whether it's for a holiday gathering or gift giving. WSTers, our friends at Canadian Club, have you covered. For gift options, there's crazy sales on for all the Canadian Club favorites, the original, the 100% rye, and the CC Classic 12-year-old. And there's still availabilities of the limited release 15-year-old Canadian Club Sherry casks still available. The Invitation Series is available. In addition, the signature CC Classic 12-year-old whiskey finished with a secondary aging in Oloroso sherry casks. All the hallmarks of Canadian Club with the added richness and sweetness of sherry. And for you big-time whiskey lovers, there are 5 bottles of the CC Chronicles 45-year-old still available for anyone looking for an extra special gift for the whiskey enthusiast in their family. 5 bottles left in Manitoba at Liquor Marts, $4.49 for those. Do have to thank the guys at Manitoba Battery, getting ready for Donnie and the gang to power us through what we're dreading, but that is the deep freeze at some point of the Winnipeg winter. Make sure your battery for your car and truck is ready to go, folks. And if you do need a battery for that or anything else, shop local, get the best prices in town, period, beating the pants off the big box stores, and do it in about as convenient way as possible, because Manitoba Battery is going to bring that to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It could not be any easier, literally. Get down to manitobabattery.com online and order, or pick up the phone and give them a holler at 783-8787. Don and his great staff will walk you through it all. Or if you would like a free battery test to see whether you're going to make it through the winter, head on down to 1026 Logan Avenue. They'll take care of you there, and you can see where the magic happens at Manitoba Battery HQ. Again, check them out online at manitobabattery.com. And just before we bring in Murat, every time we do our Aquatech read, I think about how amazing it would be to have a home sauna in the operation. Hot tubs, spas, I mean, that is really next level. But there's a bunch of things that you can do with your home that maybe you didn't realize that Aquatech can help you. Because, of course, in addition to pools and spas, they're the leaders in whole home renovations, which start with Aquatech. With thousands of renos as their foundation, Aquatech can upgrade any space in your home. If you're ready to enhance your kitchen, your bathroom, or even add a man cave to your home, visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more about their whole home renovations, including financing options. All right, Ted Wyman coming up a little later on. Danny Zhilkin of the Manitoba Moose. But right now, let's welcome in WST favorite Murat of The Athletic to get to last night's game, the Oilers visit tomorrow, and a great piece he just dropped in The Athletic on Mark Scheifele and Cole Perfetti. All right, let's welcome in Murat, who has a phenomenal new piece in The Athletic and lots to talk about with the Jets back at home. How are you?
Hey, doing well, Huss. Good to see you. Good to be here.
Well, it's always great to have you on the program. Listen, I want to get into your piece on Mark Scheifele and Cole Perfetti, but let's just quickly talk about last night's game and look ahead to Edmonton. I tweeted afterwards, I mean, being in the stands, that was a frustrating game. I mean, I can't say that the Jets played a terrible game. I mean, this was wasn't a lot of space. There wasn't a lot of inches for teams out there. And to me, I mean, when you walk out, I guess we heard the same thing from Rick Bowness. You just got to make something happen on 2 5-on-3s in a game like that. Was that the difference in your mind?
100%. 100%. And the problem with those 5-on-3s was that it was a bit symptomatic of the rest of the game too. Like there was just so little movement. And for me, like, I mean, you get a minute 52 of 5-on-3 in a game that close. You need something. You know, it's not an emergency. It doesn't undo anything the Jets did through their first 20 games. But if you want to win a hockey game, that's the way that you do it. It was almost boring to watch the first 20 seconds or so of the first 5-on-3. Pass around the perimeter. They're enjoying all of their space. I think after a shot and there was a whistle, Shifley and Connor got moving and they created a chance for Josh Morrissey. Then chances began in that first one, but it really never felt like they were on the precipice. And they had to call a whole timeout just to draw up a play and talk about moving on the second one in the third period. And at least that one looked dangerous for a minute, but that's where they lost the game.
Yeah. You know, it was funny. I was listening to a bit of the OB pregame show beforehand, and they were talking to Brendan Dillon about, you know, the run the team had been on and where they are in the standings and the really positive first 20 games. And he had said that, well, you know, we're finding and learning ways to win in different ways. I mean, you know, we can run and skate with the younger teams and then mix it up in the boring games like Dallas. And it was somewhat of a very accurate prophecy because, I mean, you do at a certain point have to tip your hat to Dallas. They know what kind of team they are. Peter DeBoer has them playing to a system, and it's a system that for talented offensive teams like Winnipeg can be very, very frustrating over the course of 60 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Winnipeg was gaining the zone, but they're kept to the outside. Like all their entries were in less than dangerous positions. They were largely kept to the outside, didn't create. When Dallas went up, and again, it really is. I mean, the Winnipeg Sports Talk turning point would be that 5-on-3. And what is it, less than a minute later that goal goes in by Joe Pavelski, and the whole game turns. Dallas has no interest in a forecheck anymore. They're backing way off, but they are controlling how Winnipeg gets into the zone. And they are controlling how Winnipeg tries to and doesn't quite get to attack the middle of the ice. I think that's where the whole tenor of the game shifted. I also wondered about, like, that was the most tepid first 2 minutes of hockey in a hockey game I've seen in ages. And I don't know if it was just a bunch of guys with like, you know, they're human beings. They have hearts. They saw the cancer care presentation. They saw those kids. Is it hard to go skate, hit, and fight after that? I don't know. Or was it what Brendan Dillon was saying? Like, you're going to have to play boring hockey to beat this team. And they were so passive. They were so tentative, both teams, for the first couple of minutes or so. I don't know, Huss. I think Winnipeg overcompensated. They were treating Dallas as such a barometer, such a measuring stick. And they got caught being impatient the first time they played. And it felt like they never quite got on that aggressive front foot to actually to even run the risk of making a mistake for a little while.
No, it seemed like both teams were more than happy to be at a 0-0 stalemate for a long time. And listen, I think from Dallas's perspective, when you're on the road playing a team that had been playing as well as Winnipeg, considering where they had been over the last 4 games or so, they were more than content in staying exactly in that point. And I'm sort of with you. I think the Jets became a little bit content saying, okay, well, as long as we're not giving anything up, we're still in this game. But at a certain point, there will be a turning point, and Rick Bowness talked about that. I mean, to give up a goal in the fashion that they did after having that 5-on-3 opportunity in a game like that, that can inevitably be a massive factor, if not the difference and turning point in the game.
100%. I mean, that's the moment it turns. The second goal's gravy more than anything. You know, that is what it is. I was also in the scrum with Pete DeBoer yesterday morning, and he seemed to be saying, and I guess Dallas had a particularly uncharacteristically bad defensive outing recently, and his focus seemed to be on getting everybody back to playing Dallas Stars hockey, and they believed in their patient system, and they believed in themselves in all of those ways that you saw them play. So maybe for them, they had went into the game and kind of trying to prove that they were good and legit and all of that. So they probably were getting the best version of their passive system as well.
Well, it is a good point. I mean, they had a couple days off to think about and stew about giving up 5 in a row and blowing a 4-2 lead against the Calgary Flames at home and losing 7-4 in that game. So, that was, there are a few games of the season that will be determined on very, very small margins. And, again, for my part, and again, maybe it was because the team was winning, but I think we saw the power play sort of coming around, Murat. Interested in your thoughts on where the power play has been in the last couple of weeks as opposed to pretty stagnant earlier in the year. And any theory why a 5-on-3 power play can look worse than a 5-on-4?
I think the 5-on-3, I'll start there. I think it looks worse than a 5-on-4 because they have so much space. There's almost no pressure to make them move, right? Any of that movement, whether it's bodies, whether it's pucks, has to be generated from the people. It's not a response to anything. It's not a reflex. It has to be a proactive decision. And I think that right off the hop on that first 5-on-3, the decisions were just slow. The passing wasn't so slow, but it was just moving around the outside. Nobody was inching closer to a dangerous spot. The 4 players who didn't have the puck, they weren't particularly moving into more dangerous outlet situations for the guy with the puck. So they move it around and they don't get their shot, and that's what it is. Now, Scheifele pointed out after the game that they got more chances than it seemed like. But no, for me, that didn't look like a dangerous 5-on-3, especially the first one. And then in terms of it coming around, I've liked it at 5-on-4 of late. I really have. I thought that they have moved. I thought that they have created as a general rule in the last little while. PK's still struggling, but they got some good ones. You know what, Huss? Actually, sorry, I want to almost compare these Dallas Stars in a very different way to the Nashville Predators of 2017-18, in that Winnipeg is trying to be on the rise. Some good underlying numbers early and some bad games as well. Everybody in town believes they're a playoff team. How high can they go? It's the deepest team we've seen in a while. And there's this one team that seems to have its number, the one that everybody sees in the West or in the division as one of the standard bearers. And so far, it's 2-0 Stars.
Well, what's going to be interesting is when the Jets get a chance to get back at these guys later on this season on the road without that last change. And, the Jets have been pretty consistent with running their 4 lines. But it did seem like, Rick Bowness was looking more at trying to get guys out against certain lines to try to just give your top offensive players a little bit of more space. And then for the first time, basically this season, we saw some line movement, Murat. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting to see Oilers play with Scheifele and Connor last night. I mean, maybe quick thoughts on that line as well as the other subsequent moves to accommodate moving 27 up with 55 and 81.
Yeah, I guess Bowness wasn't getting the spark that he wanted. And you know what? I think with Gabriel Vilardi, like just this ace up your sleeve, that you have to blow up at least one of the lines anyway, or change, pardon me. It's easier to blow up the whole thing because that you're coming around on, Wednesday heading into Thursday with new lines and ideally a Gabriel Vilardi's return. So I think that I don't know. For me, that's why that seemed easy to do on Tuesday night. In terms of the lines, it's funny. Like, I've never thought, I think Scheifele is a guy who's so good at what he does that he prefers on almost a predictable brand of hockey. He seems to like Kyle Connor attacking seams at certain times. There's a little 2-man game they play. I think Nikolai Ehlers can be confusing, and I think that I have thought that might be frustrating before. First play of that trio being united, or first shift anyway, Nikolai Ehlers goes offside on an entry attempt. And I'm just looking around like going, oh my goodness, is this going to work? But the second time that they tried, it went better. The third time they tried, Nikolai Ehlers made an amazing cross-ice pass to Scheifele. Then Scheifele burned Aitken and drove the puck to the net. There was a scoring chance there. So for me, I liked the change. I thought it added some pop up top, and I thought that it genuinely, the game had its own complexion, the third period just pushing, but I thought that it genuinely led to positive chances and some nice looks.
So let's assume that Vilardi comes back against the Oilers. Rick Bowness has said something that kind of contradicted what Arneal had said about a week ago before. I'm not sure if you caught him. Scott said when he's coming back, he's a top 6 forward. And then Rick had said, well, when he comes in, he's not going to be playing 20 minutes a night right up there with the top. So I'm very unsure of how things look in the first game and whether that's changed from game 2 or game 3. But where we stand right now with the potential of his return against the Oilers tomorrow, When Vilardi's back in the lineup, where do you think he starts with, and what does that do to the other lines?
Yeah, for me, I start with Lowry's line as untouchable. So I think that even though Lowry's line has often been the second line, when you think of a top six in the checking line or whatever in terms of old school hockey terminology, you can still sell Vilardi as a top six forward if you put him with, say, Perfetti and Nemesnikov, or Perfetti and Ehlers on that second line if IFL or someone else is up top. And then work him back into that Connor Scheifele hole. Like, I think that you can still sell that he's a top six forward without playing him 20 minutes and all that sort of stuff. But if he's really genuinely going, and I know that it could be tough, he's got a new knee brace now at this point, and who knows exactly how high he'll be flying right away. If it does work out, I'm sure Bowness will be tempted to go right back to Connor Scheifele, Vilardi on that top line. They had chemistry. Vilardi helps protect the puck. He has a similar vision style, I think, to Scheifele as well. Like, for me, whether it's immediate or eventual, that's the one that they're going to try to cook with.
So do we see I'm a fan of Ehlers and Perfetti together. I think the more that they played together, the more they understand each other, and we've seen the success that's come along with it. I didn't think we'd be talking about a potential possibility where Alex Iafallo has been so good is going to move from the first line to the fourth line. But I guess that has to be on the table, and we saw a little bit of that last night.
Yeah, I think so. That's credit to him for some of the performances he had over his stint on that top line. 4 assists one night. I mean, he was incredibly productive early. It's been a minute since he's been able to do that, and I think that it's just a situation where he's a versatile guy, and that has run its course. And you look at the rest of what's been going on that middle six. You have the opportunity to add Vilardi to that group as well, and maybe it's got to be him. And whereas I once thought it would have been Nemesnikov, I think that you hear and see his chemistry with Ehlers developing. Rick Bowness seems to attribute Ehlers' success to Nemesnikov as well, so that it might be tempting for if Vilardi makes it all the way to the top line to keep Perfetti, Nemesnikov, and Ehlers together as sort of a secondary scoring line.
So let's take a quick look at tomorrow night's tilt. The Oilers are off the mat. They almost blew it last night. I mean, they gave up those 2 late goals, and I thought we're fortunate to get it to OT and then won in a shootout. But right now for this team, it is just all about getting points. They've dug themselves such a hole. A very different challenge for the Jets tomorrow night, taking on McDavid and Draisaitl, than what they went through last night with the Dallas Stars. Yeah,
there's going to be desperation and an incredible offensive surge. I think McDavid's up to 12 points in his last 3 games. Like, that's otherworldly stuff. But with that desperation comes the opportunity to counterpunch. I think if it is an open game, Winnipeg will get its chances. Even Stuart Skinner, I mean, who has emerged as the surviving goalie, it seems so far in Edmonton, his numbers aren't very good. And part of that collapse was a goaltending collapse. So whether it's him, or any of the other options Edmonton can throw, you have to think it's going to be a higher event game, and you have to think that there's going to be some goals to be had as well. So I like it. I like it as pure entertainment. Desperation opens up some weaknesses at times too.
Well, the entertainment value, I think, will be greatly increased as opposed to last night. We were walking out of the building last night, and it said, "Don't expect this on Thursday when the Oilers come to town." But I would suggest this is a huge game for Winnipeg, as much as every game is for Edmonton right now. You had that great run. They fell short in the game. They probably could have won, certainly lost the goaltending battle on Sunday. And then a game that I think they were really preparing themselves for came up just short. Next thing you know, you lose this game and you're on a 3-game losing streak after everything you've done positively. I mean, Edmonton's a desperate team, but I'm hoping that Jets come out with a real sense of urgency and continue to do what they've done for the most part this year, game in and game out.
Yeah, I think that's what makes greats great. It's not that you figured out how to do the thing, play the right way, stay patient, but also aggressive and get your chances. Is that when stuff goes wrong, you can do it again. It's when stuff goes wrong for a couple games in a row, you can do it again. You can go back to it and you can beat good teams that way. I mean, like, I always used to think about this, and I need to modernize my thinking, but I think about Blake Wheeler on the Jets power play for so many years. There are a lot of players who could make the seam passes that he did, there were few players that could make them as consistently. It's not enough to figure it out one time. It's in the NHL, the greats do it all of the time. So I don't know if that's Kyle Connor in tight with a scoring chance or whatever. Like I need a new analogy on this front. Winnipeg needs to prove that this wasn't a 20-game flash in the pan, pardon me, that they've not only figured it out, but they know how to do it when things get tough and November picks up and they play against some good desperate teams.
All right, well, we'll have plenty of time tomorrow to get ready for Jets Oilers. But I wanted to focus in on your latest in The Athletic. And gang, if you have not read this yet, it is a must-read for Winnipeg Jet fans. It's entitled A Franchise Icon, a Rising Hockey Star, and the Bond That Makes Them Better. It is a really interesting dive into a growing relationship between Mark Scheifele and Cole Perfetti. How long have you been working on this, Murat? I mean, you sort of teased that there was a couple long reads, things that you were excited to put out. The minute I read this, I was pretty sure this is what you were talking about, at least one of them. Give us a little bit of the backstory on putting this one together.
Well, I was on that road trip last January. It was sort of the beginning of the darkness, actually, where the Jets struggled in Toronto and Ottawa and Montreal. I was on that trip, and I just had one of the best conversations with Mark Scheifele that I had ever, in any capacity, had. He was talking philosophy. He was talking biology. He was talking about mentorship. We talked about Adam Oates. And we got onto the idea, which is what I wanted to ask him about, was on the bench, I had noticed, like, you know, at that time he was playing on a line with Cole Perfetti. And on the bench, they were always hunched over an iPad. Like it was a constant dialogue that you could see. The Jets sat them side by side in the dressing room, clearly by design. You know, if you want to be sentimental about it, Scheifele's longtime mentor, Dale Howard-Chuck, well, it was Howard-Chuck's wife, Crystal, who called Cole Perfetti's name when they were drafted. And so we've got this tie from the Jets 1.0 greatness, Jets 2.0 franchise icon, and a guy clearly on his way. And Scheifele's taken the guy under his wing, and I wanted to investigate that. And from there, from that great conversation, I learned some tidbits about a sushi dinner that didn't go so well, a road trip that they went on, some of the formative parts of the friendship. And just as I got to sort of outline that story and get it going, Cole Perfetti got hurt. So we put it on the back burner, September hits. It's like, okay, I gotta tell this story again. I go back at both players. They share more insight, more details, the movies, the music, the golf, the road trip to Michigan they took. Scheifele's talking about Perfetti like he's family. Perfetti and Scheifele both do this like almost cute thing where in the middle of a sentence, each one of them did this to me separately. Scheifele says, Cole's, well, he's like one of my best friends on the team. Perfetti said, oh yeah, I mean, I used to like idolize this guy. I'm 14 years old watching him in the World Cup of Hockey. Now he's one of your best, he's one of my good friends on that, like, they're like afraid to name it. Anyway, so after all these conversations, and both guys opened up real good, that shared some inside baseball sort of stuff about what Scheifele's been teaching Perfetti on and off the ice, the nutrition, finding space in the offensive zone, all that. It was just the best hockey nerd conversations. Then we go back. The editors get excited about it. Hey, can we make this more of a New York Times style thing? And, you know, there's like a brief moment where it showed up on the New York Times page as well. And so it changes how you approach it. And like, I'm sitting on this thing for friggin' weeks, probably more than that actually. And I just want to get it out. And thank goodness it's out there in the world. There's some real nice stories they shared in it.
Well, and you know, in some ways, you know, like from a fan's perspective and a reader, the wait makes it almost more interesting because, you know, let's say that this had come out just after that road trip and things were going the way they were and Cole was out. It'd be like, oh, that's sort of a neat, interesting background. But there's a lot more to it now that you go through last summer. And you mentioned that trip where, you know, Cole's invited to, you know, go roll with the big guys for a week down in Michigan with, you know, a number of the top Winnipeg Jets and former Jet Andrew Kopp, and really feeling a part of it. And all of that, I couldn't help but while I was reading that, you know, relate that to how Cole Perfetti now feels and is a big part of this team when in the past couple of years, he was sort of scratching and clawing to show that he belongs. And, there's a maturity level of this relationship that I think comes out in the article over time. But also, I think that's an interesting analogy to Cole Perfetti as a player right now, not only in a connection with Scheifele in some ways, but also with his teammates.
I think he's a player that's coming into his own, right? Like 17 points in 21 games. This is a player who is developing into the guy that the Jets hoped that they drafted. And Scheifele, for his part, too, is having a heck of a season. 200-foot game most nights, offense as much as ever, and just loose and light and fun in the room in a way that, we probably haven't seen since those Jacob Trouba High School Musical videos they used to shoot. And I think that part of what's making both players so good is the relationship that they have with each other. So that Perfetti, who, gosh, he's a driven guy, the patience to wait for the health and all that must have been so tough. Having a guy to talk to about that would have helped. Having a guy talk to about how to, make an impact and use his body to make space, even though he's not a bigger guy, like that helps. And I think that they're both bringing out the best in each other, which is something that you want to be careful not to force that onto a story. Like, oh, let's just say that that's what's happening and it's catchy. I think that that's the sincere truth of what's going on for these guys.
We've seen Perfetti contribute in a big way to a resurgent power play last night, notwithstanding. At what point do we see Perfetti potentially play with Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele? Do you think that's in the cards at some point, whether it's this season or in the future? And when you think about that possibility, is it exciting to you?
Yeah, for sure. I would see a lot of on-ice chemistry between Scheifele and Perfetti. I could see that developing. They both just seem to have the ability to wait that extra quarter of a second to find a seam that nobody else saw. Like Scheifele passes under triangles, behind back feet. You can see all the passes he's made to Kyle Connor. That's one of the deadliest connections in the NHL right now. Perfetti thinks the game in a similar way. There's a timing element to those passes. You saw it to Nikolai Ehlers for that backdoor goal that he scored. And maybe that's a sign that they're best on opposite lines, doing that same sort of role for other people. But I think that there's room for them to excel together as well. Kyle Connor, obviously, an unbelievable finisher. I wondered out loud about Perfetti, Scheifele, and Vilardi at times as well. Though, of course, then you have to find a new home for Kyle Connor. There are options created when Winnipeg not just drafts a guy in hopes that he's a top 6 player, but develops him into that. The relationships are there, the vision is there, and his health has been a big part of that too. Like, that's a role that he could own at some point in his career for sure.
Has Perfetti's palate for sushi improved at all since his first dinner with Mark?
Yeah, imagine, right? This guy you've watched since you were a kid. You know his OHL career since you were a child. At 14, you watch him start at the World Cup of Hockey. You watch his NHL Jets career take off. He invites you over for dinner, and the food that he plates for you, you can't even stomach. So, like, Perfetti just doing his best to be respectful and humble and all that. And he's like, anyway, so, sashimi, not a go. He will eat raw fish in sushi rolls. That's it. It doesn't have to be cooked if it's in a roll. He's got other stuff on his plate. He bragged about 6 or 7 vegetables he eats now. That was fun. And then one of the things that made me laugh too is, I guess it's an ongoing joke. Perfetti and Sandberg live together. And then I believe that Perfetti's girlfriend is in town as well. And he was saying that she teases him. It's an ongoing joke in their household that, like, hey, you're not going to try this dish? If Scheifele asked you to try it, you would. And he's like, actually, yeah, Katie, I probably would. Sorry, but that's just how it works.
Listen, folks, you got to read it. It is in The Athletic right now. There's one other thing in The Athletic, and it's actually a nice little segue to the quarter point. And, the stock watch, the risers and fallers at the season's quarter point. We had a conversation earlier this week coming out of the weekend on 20 games in, quarter point to the season. We were talking about grades for the team, but also who was the MVP. And it was interesting that everyone threw out a different name. And I think it speaks to how many guys have been a part of the early season success of the Winnipeg Jets that have made a difference. I mean, there's certainly Kyle Connor, Adam Lowry, both on the ice and off the ice. But I came back to Mark Scheifele, and you did as well. And, maybe just coming off of what you told all of us fans with what happened with that relationship and the growing, mentorship, if you will, of Cole Perfetti in his role. I think back to when you were starting these interviews last year in January, when things went pretty sour for a couple months, and we all remember how Mark's season ended. I think because of that, he's the MVP of what he's done this year, considering how bad it got at one point last year where he wasn't even playing at center. But 20 games in, just thoughts on the way Mark Scheifele has played, the way that he has really seemed to buy into everything the team has been, and the success that's come along with that, both personally and for the club.
Consider that during that stretch run, people were wondering, should Mark Scheifele be a long-term Winnipeg Jet? And then to go through that summer, obviously the dual deals with Connor Hellebuyck, to approach this season, exhale, he's got the contract, he's got the security, and buy into the way that the team is playing. I know that the Scheifele line hasn't outscored its opposition. I think it's been 15-15 or something heading into last night. They haven't outchanced. But when I watch the way that Mark Scheifele is playing hockey right now, he covers down low. He tracks to his own crease. There's a defensive urgency to his game. There are plays that he breaks up and physical battles that he engages in and wins. Yes, sometimes when they're trying to stretch their offense, their exits can suffer, and that leads to chances against, for sure. And yes, the elite top lines of the league outscore their opposition instead of sort of sawing them off. But they've been doing that with Alex Iafallo as a winger. And for Scheifele to have that consistent 200-foot capacity to his game, run 23 points in his first 20 games as well, scoring as much as ever, setting up Kyle Connor for a near league lead in goals, impacting the power play last night excluded. And then to admit that I'm biased a little bit by what I've seen in the room this year. Certainly his interactions with Cole Perfetti and that mentorship, but there's stuff that isn't recorded and isn't written as well. And I've just seen so many moments where he's kidding around with David Gustafsson or Axel Jonsson-Fjallby, or Dylan Sandberg is welcome on that team. Ville Heinola is welcome on that team. And I took that concept to Cole Perfetti at one point, and I said, hey, I thought that Mark Scheifele wasn't supposed to be good with young players. And Perfetti said, Murat, that's crap. Like, I don't buy any of it. Everything that I see with him and these guys and all that sort of stuff, absolutely not. He's been golden since day one. And when I see all of that in the package that also leads or is tied for the team lead in scoring, I think that, yeah, that's my MVP for this season so far, even knowing there's good cases on line 3 and in goal and all that other stuff.
Well, I mean, listen, it's a fun conversation to have, and, considering where the team is. That being said, they're going to be up against it tomorrow against a resurgent Oilers team. And, just to put a bow on Scheif, I mean, obviously we can't talk about his season without mentioning, the dual contract extensions for he and Connor Hellebuyck. But I thought about this even last night after the game, Murat. It was a tough game. The team got shut out. Like last year in the second half of the season, Mark Scheifele's not speaking to the media. He's not wearing a Jets team hat, the hockey fights cancer, and kind of thoughtfully trying to go through at least his perspective of it. And to me, I'm just, how is this contract and having everything that maybe was noise around him being taken care of, how do you think that's helped him personally, as well as being a guy that was wearing an A that is going to be a big part of this team for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I see like two keys to this. And one is when he gets that contract locked in, there is an exhale that he can do as a human being and say, okay, I have this security. He's not going to be looking over his shoulder at, the trade rumors or any of that sort of stuff. He's a foundational part of Winnipeg, as he probably believed himself to be, but now he's got that in proof and in the contract and all of that comes with it. I think that that's an exhale you can just sort of relax and step into yourself a little bit more. So I think that's part of it. I also think that this room, you heard Rick Bowness say it on Tuesday. My goodness, he was talking about why Winnipeg was a better team this year than last. And he said, well, hey, it goes back to opening up the dressing room and changing the leadership group last year in September. And we're still seeing the rewards of that. That's one of the things that I take away from that. This isn't Mark Scheifele under Blake Wheeler's shadow and the two of them sort of quote unquote running the room, however much truth there was or was not to that perception. It certainly does feel as though it's a more everybody is welcome, everybody's voice is heard, there's less prickliness, there's more room for, I want to say, the full version of Mark Scheifele to show up. And that includes the lightheartedness, that includes that hockey nerd that we saw and then saw get buried for a cliche monster when things got tough. And I think that he seems to me like a person right now who's embracing the full and positive and I want to say wonderful version of himself, because when he gets going on those details of how hockey gets played, few people can chop it up better than Mark Scheifele can. Put that all together. I'm also noticing that last night, I'm asking these questions about the 5-on-3, which clearly cost the team the game, right? This is the thing that the game turned on, was the 5-on-3. He's a part of that. He's a driving part of that. So he wears that. There was certainly the seething upset of they didn't win, all of that sort of stuff, but he was willing to get into it. He had the conversation. It wasn't a prickly version of the conversation. And I don't know, for me, that just reads like maturity. I appreciated seeing that.
Well, we know how he looks up to Connor McDavid and appreciates the challenge. So be a good way to set the table for what should be a real fun Thursday night at Canada Life Center. Gang, in The Athletic right now, a franchise icon, a rising star, and the bond that makes them better. Must read for Winnipeg Jet fans. Great job as always, Murat, and thanks for jumping on today. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much.
All right, great chat with Murat. Definitely get out there and check that piece in The Athletic if you haven't already. And listen, the homestand didn't start off great. Hopefully it changes tomorrow night when the WST crew is in the house for game number 2 of our 4-game pack. Looking forward to seeing all of you there. If you weren't able to, for whatever reason, jump on the pack with the WST gang, don't forget tomorrow, the Thirsty Thursday promo from the Jets, $69 ticket, including a beer. And as I suggested at the beginning of the show, see if you can get somewhere in that. Well, we're in section 316 and 317. We'll be there in the bar of 316 before the game. So even if you're not able to join us for the other games in the package, get on down there tomorrow. Should be a great matchup. Oilers are hot. Jets need a win. And hey, we get to see the best player in the world right here in Winnipeg. Not a bad deal at all from the Winnipeg Jets. And then huge weekend, Connor Bedard after Connor McDavid. And then Monday, the Canes in town. First time we'll see those 48s jerseys. I've seen a lot more of those lately. I couldn't believe how many of those jerseys I saw in Edmonton when I was at the game in the second week of the season. A lot of visiting Jet fans in Edmonton were rocking those as well. Anyways, all there for you. WinnipegJets.com/tickets. Hopefully we'll see you there tomorrow night. Got a couple more qualifiers for this. The Trevor Linden autographed jersey from our friends at Vita Health. You see that? Certificate of authenticity and the full package of Prairie Natural supplements from Canada's #1 men's health brand. Congratulations to Rhonda Pershot and Herb Sturman. Rhonda and Herb, you're in there for, that's tomorrow's special marble race at the end of the game. We've been doing qualifiers all month long. We will still have 2 more marbles pulled tomorrow for the show. So if you haven't already, get to winnipegsports.com/contest. Enter your name. We'll add a couple more marbles tomorrow, and then at the end of tomorrow's show, everyone that is qualified will be in, and the winner will get this beautiful Trevor Linden jersey and the full line of Prairie Natural supplements, which are on sale all month at Vita Health Fresh Market. Of course, for Men's Health Month, they've got always have great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries. But with it being Men's Health Month, Prairie Naturals offers Canada's #1 line of men's health supplements, helping males address the challenges with prostate health, andropause, low libido, testosterone, stress, male energy, and performance. On sale all month at Vita Health empowering people to lead healthy lives. 6 Winnipeg locations and online at myvita.ca. Our friends at Wallace & Wallace are busy right now. You've seen their fences and trucks all over the city. They've been doing it since 1946 as the leaders in fencing, but also overhead garage doors. And that overhead garage door of yours had lots of ups and downs this summer and fall, but it's about to work a whole lot harder because winter puts much more stress on your overhead garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Call Wallace & Wallace to book your inspection and maintenance service call today. For residential and commercial overhead door sales and service, there's only one name, or two, you need to know, and that is Wallace & Wallace. And hey, December is just about here. And the gang down in F Apparel are ready for the holidays. Just finished up that massive Black Friday sale. And guys, whether it's for the holidays or looking into 2024, if you need to up your menswear game, get on down to F Apparel. Great deals on all summer long, and really always. I mean, they've got custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles to go great with your suit, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. They do have a 15% discount for wedding parties, so if you're getting married, make sure to talk to the guys there about that. And don't forget, F Apparel gift cards make an amazing gift for the male in your life that might need a little upgrade in the clothing department. Find out more online at EPHapparel.com. You can also make an appointment there to go down and see Andrew, Alex, and their great staff to get you looking like $1 million US tax free. All right, speaking of looking like $1 million US tax free, let's get Ted Wyman in here from the Winnipeg Sun. Teddy, it is great to see you. Have you recovered from Grey Cup? I'll be honest, I'm still somewhat under the weather about a week and a half afterwards. I think there was a few things that were caught by a lot of people in and around the Hamilton area, and there was a lot of fun to be had, which may have depleted the immune systems.
Well, I don't know about US 1 million tax-free, but I certainly feel like I'm a bit cleaned up after the last time I was on your show. Grey Cup's quite the event, and you kind of wear it when you're getting towards the end of the week. So actually, I felt great. So touch wood, been just good, great so far. It was a great week, wasn't it, Hustler? Honestly, I'm sure a lot of Bomber fans not happy about the final result, but it was a fantastic week in Hamilton and a great football game. And in my opinion, a great football season for the Canadian Football League. So many positive things came out of this season. And as a fan of the game, I can't be more happy than that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're all still bent that the Bombers fell just short in winning the Grey Cup. But I have to say, from a CFL perspective, a Montreal market that had been going through some tough times in previous years, it was pretty awesome to see the way that city supported that championship. Then they won the Vanier the following week. Pretty good time for 3-down football in La Belle Province.
Yeah, Danny Machoch's hands all over both of those programs too, right? So good on him. I'm not even sure he was the first choice for GM of the Montreal Alouettes, but he sure has done a good job with that. I think it's really great that Pierre-Carl Pelledo, who's a Francophone owner, comes in and buys the team, and they're looking to give it that stamp of being a real part of Quebec and a real part of Montreal on both the French and English sides. And then they go and win, and one of their biggest stars is a French player in Marc-Antoine Dequoy. And I think it just really it was really good. But it's not just Montreal. BC is having such a revival. Toronto had better attendance this year, and they sold out the West Final. Their interest is up in terms of television ratings all over the place. So, I don't want to just sound like Randy Ambrosie here being overly positive, because not everything is perfect, but that was a year of increased positivity. And after being involved as a fan of this league and as a reporter covering this league for so many years, it's just good to see something that seems to be on the upswing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think we all want a very healthy league, but want the Bombers to be back on top. And this is we knew that this was going to be the case, win or lose, Ted, that this offseason would be very different than last year. How do you think the loss in the Grey Cup, though, shapes the organization moving forward?
I don't know that it makes that big of a difference, Huss, because they were going to be in some trouble in terms of cap space anyways, in terms of signing some of their young stars and potentially retaining some of their veterans. But the loss, in my mind, the way that it maybe affects things is in what Mike O'Shea said towards the end, or in his season-ending press conference, was that maybe a couple of guys were considering retirement. And then we asked about Kyle Walter about it today at his season-ending press conference and announcing his new contract. That what's the situation with those players who may be considering retirement? And he said, well, guys are going to say that after a devastating loss, right? Like they're probably more likely to say that they're not wanting to keep playing, not to go through, the amount you have to go through to get to the point to the Grey Cup and then to lose it at the last second. It's got to be awfully gut wrenching, and it makes you wonder if it's all worth it. So he said, you got to give it a month. You got to give everybody a month to really think it through and decide what they really think. So I don't think he's buying that anybody's really considering retirement yet. He'll believe that in a month, and that's probably what we should do too.
Yeah, that's considering O'Shea will never rule a guy out until the game's already been played. I would imagine everyone can sit on that for a little bit. We'll get to that in a minute. I guess the big news this week is that the Brain Trust is back. The Canadian Mafia isn't going anywhere. Kyle Walters, along with Danny McManus and Ted Govaya, back here. And I'm sure that was challenging for the organization, Ted. We've talked about the stress that this staff cap puts on a team like the Bombers that have a lot of guys that, frankly, probably deserve raises.
Yeah, as far as I know, these guys who played a huge role in getting the Blue Bombers to 4 straight Grey Cups and winning 2 of them are going to come back for the same salary they were making because there's nowhere to give them a raise. And that's really frustrating. And to be honest, the fact is there's nowhere in the league that they could have gone anyways. Really, like there's no openings for a general manager, and Walters isn't going to leave Winnipeg for anything else. He's already a general manager, and the other guys aren't likely to leave unless they're moving up to a general manager position. So they were kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. The Bombers had, I don't think the Bombers were squeezing them, but they didn't have much choice about what they could offer, and these guys have to take what is there. And their reward, well, they get to be a part of an organization that has won a lot and could continue to win. But as I wrote in my column that hasn't actually come out yet, Kyle Walters' reward is that he gets to now try to deal with this situation, which is that they don't know if they can bring back the same core exactly and potentially run it back again because they've got a lot of free agents. And some of them are younger and are going to be expecting huge raises. And some of them are older and aren't going to be wanting to be pushed out the door. So it's going to be a really challenging offseason. Kyle Walters said so himself. Hey, welcome back, right?
Well, and of course, in the midst of all of this, the Bombers are in a little bit of a waiting mode to find out what happens with Buck Pierce. A lot of smoke. We haven't yet had the white smoke come out of the Saskatchewan
green smoke
head office. Green smoke, yes, indeed, to announce their new head coach. But by all accounts, it's down to Buck and Corey Mace. What are you hearing on the Riders' head coaching situation? What might that mean for the Bombers if Buck Pierce is their guy?
Both excellent candidates, by the way. I mean, really, they're both deserving of this opportunity. It really comes down to, for the Riders, exactly who's the right fit for that organization, maybe whether they want a more offensive guy or a more defensive guy. But as many people have pointed out, Mike O'Shea is does a fine job of coaching, and he was a defensive player and he was a special teams coach before he became a head coach. He doesn't really have anything to do with the offense, but the Bombers do just fine. So you don't have to have a great offensive mind to be a great head coach. So we'll see on that front. But, we all know Buck Pierce well here in the media. This is a man who's been part of the organization for, I think, 14 years now. He's been a coach for a long time. He's been a quarterbacks coach, running backs coach. He's been the OC for the last few seasons. He's a guy that really has bled Winnipeg Blue Bomber football, and he's paid his dues. So he deserves this opportunity to move on and to become a head coach. And it sounds like it could be a fantastic opportunity in Saskatchewan. That's a team that's really struggled, and they didn't have a very good head coaching situation for the last few years. So they're looking for somebody to really turn it around. It's a big, big chance for him. And Mike O'Shea says he's ready, and I have no reason to disagree with him. I think he'll be excellent at it. But from what I've heard, Huss, it should be done this week. So I'm guessing it will be done by Friday. They'll make their decision. They'll make their announcement. But, if the Saskatchewan Roughriders is going to do anything right, and they haven't done a lot right in the last few years, it's get this decision correct and do their due diligence and make sure they make the right choice, because they don't have a lot of options right now. If they're not going to be a good team in the next couple of years, I don't know what happens out there. They're losing fans. People aren't happy. It's something they really need to rectify.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're just talking about how, like, Montreal's doing well and BC's kind of on the comeback and the Argos are moving forward. The Riders have been going in reverse. And that, for a long time, had been the franchise in the Canadian Football League. The Bombers have taken that mantle over the last few years, both on the field and in the stands. I will say this, though, Ted. I mean, there's a lot of pressure that comes along with that job. And to be frank, I don't have a lot of confidence in the rest of the operation running the show that would maybe put, whether it's Mace or Buck, in a chance to go and really succeed, especially in a pretty tough Western division with very good teams in Winnipeg, in BC, a Calgary team that you would assume will be better, and an Edmonton team that clearly is moving in the right direction.
And I have to agree with you. And when you think about it, whoever comes in there is going to want to put their own mark on that team. But from what I heard, Scott Milanovich wanted to be a part of this, and the Rough Riders decided he wasn't the right guy because Milanovich wanted too much control. So if they want to have all the control, if they want to decide who's going to be the assistant coaches, if they want to decide, how things are going to be done, and the head coach isn't going to have as much of a say as he wants to have, that's already going to be a tough situation. So you have to make sure that it's absolutely perfect for you. And if I'm Buck Pierce, I want to come in or Corey Mace for that matter, I would want to come in and I'd want to establish my own staff, bring guys that I trust. People have talked about him potentially bringing some guys from the Winnipeg staff. You wouldn't be shocked if he did. Maybe you want to bring in Drew Brown if you're Buck Pierce, because Drew Brown is going to be a fairly highly sought after free agent after having an excellent season as the Bombers' backup. Now, the Riders do have Trevor Harris, who's a veteran, and you certainly would not suggest that he's going to be just thrown out the door. I don't think he is, but also he's an older player, I think 35, and at least 35. And if you're thinking, well, can we bring in a 26-year-old that has a bright future? You probably want to. There's some Bomber fans, honestly, Huss, right now that are thinking the same thing. Even though Zach Collaros has been the best player in the league for the last 4 years, there's even some Bomber fans thinking, well, maybe we want the 26-year-old to take over sooner than later. So I expect that whoever goes in there needs to make sure that they're going to be able to put their stamp on that organization, because if it's me and I'm thinking about who's been running the show up till this point with some of the mistakes they've made, I don't know if I'd want to trust it that if they're left with too much control, that it's going to work out.
Yeah, let me just say for the record, I have heard similar things from a few people, and the thought of moving on from Zach Collaros for Drew Brown at this point is absolutely patently insane. Appreciate what you have, and I know that Zach didn't have his best game in the Grey Cup, but I mean, remember what this city and this team was like before Zach Collaros got here? And here's the thing. I mean, has Drew Brown showed glimpses of some potential? For sure. But I mean, I'm not convinced that he's a starting quarterback, one of the best 9 that goes into one of those other spots. And that's why I'm really not too sure what is out there for him, because I think he realizes that there probably is a path to the starting job here in a couple years. And consistency, staying under Zach, learning under Zach, I think would be good for him. That being said, time is everything right now, especially in professional football. And, you maybe don't have that time to wait. And if there is a spot elsewhere in the league that will give you a legitimate chance to start, which probably isn't here, I would understand him making the move. Regardless of who the quarterback is, we know who the quarterback is going to be. If Buck Pierce is the head coach of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, where does that leave the Bombers when it comes to the OC? Keeping in mind what we talked about earlier with this staff cap, I'm not sure how much money there'll be there for an OC, and might we see a younger, less proven guy that comes in on a bit cheaper of a deal, frankly, Ted?
Yeah, so I'm not going to try to pretend I have inside information on this. I don't. I'm speculating when I say any of this, but obviously Paul LaPolice's name comes up with a lot of people because he's available, right? He was the head coach of the Ottawa Red Blacks. He was fired last season. He's been working with TSN. I don't know if you ran into him at the Grey Cup Husk, but I certainly did a few times and chatted with him. And he said his family likes Ottawa. They're enjoying that. He's liking being on TSN. I don't think he said he wasn't interested in being an OC again, but there's going to be more than just his desire to be back in it to be considered, because he does have other options that he likes. And then there's the money. Can they afford to bring back Paul LaPolice? Could they pay him that amount? So that's a good question. Would you have to potentially promote from within, and who might you have that you could do that with? I will tell you, the one name that I've heard in the past as a potential OC in the CFL is Marty Costello, who's the Blue Bombers offensive line coach. Now, that's probably a little bit of an unconventional idea to have a guy go from offensive line to offensive coordinator, but the name has been mentioned, and I should throw it out there. There's other guys, obviously, who are offensive-minded people in the organization. Not sure if anyone's quite ready to make that jump to OC. Buck mentored under Paul LaPolice for a few years before he got the opportunity to take over. So you probably want somebody more like that. And maybe you're going to look outside the organization, but where that money's going to come from, I don't know. And that's why there's so much, the first delay for this team getting on with its offseason was making sure that it got Walters and McManus and Gavea signed and sealed and delivered and ready to start working. The second delay is finding out what happens with Buck. And I think they'll find that out this week, because there's not much you can do really until you know who's going to be that OC. You want all the players that you're offering contracts to know who that OC is going to be. And I think that's really going to be very important, a very important first step for this team. And that, of course, is only if Buck is the one who leaves and goes to Saskatchewan. But again, as Kyle Walters said today, this is a different offseason. It is not like every other year to this point. It's much more challenging. There's a whole lot of dominoes that have to fall into place, and then there's a whole lot of work to be done.
Ted, just as far as the veteran players, and I'm with you. I mean, Mike O'Shea's going to wait and just see how guys feel after Christmas into January. But who, in your opinion, who are the most likely guys to retire?
Stanley Bryant has never talked about it. He doesn't. He just likes playing. He wants to play. O'Shea said he's still one of the best offensive linemen in the game right now, and probably will go down in history as one of, if not the best of all time in this league. He's 37 years old, but there's older guys playing offensive line. There's one in the NFL that's 41 right now. It's not impossible. And as long as he's still doing his job, which he wasn't as good as he was this year as he has been in the past. He wasn't, but he was still really darn good. And I'll tell you who really likes Stanley Bryant being protecting his blind side, and that's Zach Collaros. And if Zach Collaros is going to be lobbying to have Stanley Bryant back, that's going to be a pretty important person in his ear. And the Bombers are going to look to make that another one of their foundational building blocks. This team is always built around the offensive line. They don't have anybody under contract right now except for backups. So I see them starting there. We'll find out soon enough whether Stanley's going to be the guy or not. Would anybody be shocked if Stanley decided to retire at age 37? I don't think so. But I certainly wouldn't be shocked if he came back either. And, Jamarcus Hardrick had one of his best years. He was the West Division nominee for most outstanding offensive lineman. Thrilled about it. Bleeds blue and gold. Loves being a part of this team. Is as enthusiastic as he's ever been at age 33. But he's often been a guy who said, yeah, I think about it a lot, about retirement. He thinks about it every year. And Pat Neufeld is age 34. Just he's recently become a father, and there's things that maybe give different factors for people. A lot of people throw out Adam Bighill's name. He's 35 years old. He's got another career here in Winnipeg in financial advisement. He's he's obviously getting towards the end of his career, but still had an excellent year. He was a CFLPA All-Star. And I asked him point blank, and he said, have I played my last down of football? By no means have I. So he expects to come back and play. So if you're asking me, who these guys are, that are these couple of guys who are leaning towards retirement, I couldn't tell you for sure. It was pure speculation. For all I know, it could be somebody who's younger and just wants to move on with their career in a different way, right? So we will have to see how that shakes out. But obviously, when players are over 34, 35, you have to think that they're thinking about it every year. I don't know why they wouldn't.
Yeah, Bighill strikes me as a guy that's going to need to be dragged off the field kicking and screaming at some point. So
he's still super valuable too.
Yeah, first things first, we'll see what happens to the west in Saskatchewan with Buck Pierce, and then all systems go on what will be a very interesting Bomber off season. And Ted, we'll need to chop it up on a little curling coming up in the next couple of months back and getting into the roaring game season. Thanks for doing this, pal. Always great to have you on, and we'll look forward to your column tomorrow in the Winnipeg Sun.
Always a pleasure. Thanks a lot, Huss. Have a great day.
Good stuff. There is the drip master himself, Ted Wyman, with us on WST. We're going to talk some Moose coming up in just a second. Danny Zhilkin jumping on the program live. Looking forward to that. Of course, when we talk Bombers on this program, we do it courtesy of our wonderful sponsors, Princess Auto, who, of course, are also big backers of the Blue, welcoming fans to that Princess Auto tailgate zone all season long. With the holidays upon us, gang, Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Plenty of amazing holiday gift ideas and everything that you or the person you're giving the gift to needs to complete all those projects on the list or start something new. It's all at Princess Auto. Pop down and see them. Panet Road, Portage Avenue West in Winnipeg, and shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Speaking of holiday gift ideas, whether you're looking for Jets gear, Bomber gear, some very, very cool old school limited edition Moose hats that Royal Sports just did, or your favorite NFL teams, Major League Baseball, NBA, it is all at Royal Sports, not to mention all that cool stuff on the King's Skate, Snow, and Surf side. One trip to 750 Pembina Highway can probably save you a lot of time and a lot of frustration when you're getting ready for the Christmas season. So get on down there. Manitoba's #1 sports superstore with the biggest and best selection of gear around is Royal Sports. And follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops, sale information, and great holiday gift ideas. And hey, don't forget, I see Randy D's in the house, Yin Vivian, everyone there chatting it up, talking fantasy football. We'll be doing that in person next Wednesday at Little Brown Jug for the Winnipeg Sports Talk Holiday Party, all in support of the cheerboard right now. Tickets are available. We do have limited capacity, so please, if you can, get a ticket now. Do it in advance. The link's in the description. Every cent from the, I believe, $12 or $11.98 is going to go to the cheerboard. We're going to be doing a special draffle there for some more prizes to raise some money for the cheerboard. We'll be enjoying all that great Little Brown Jug beer, and we'll be enjoying Boston Pizza, our favorite. And big thanks to the great folks at BP who are going to be sending a bunch of pies over for us that night and helping us raise some money for the Christmas cheerboard. Of course, slower night tonight, only 3 games in the NHL. Tomorrow, though, Jets are back. Cowboys and Seahawks kick off the week in the NFL. No better place to get together with the gang than watch the big game than your local Boston Pizza, world-famous BP wings, ice-cold schooners, those great gourmet pizzas, and more. Make it a BP night today. And hey, if you are staying at home, you can always get the great taste of Boston Pizza delivered hot and fresh and ready to go from bostonpizza.com. Moose are back after a big road trip. And really looking forward to this. For the first time on the program, we welcome in Moose center Danny Zhilkin to the show. Danny, what's going on? Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Doing well. It's a tough one last night for the Jets. They kind of got squeezed by the Dallas Stars, but it's been a great start for the big club right now. And I'm really interested in you. I mean, 15 games into your professional career, playing pro in the American Hockey League level for the first time. How's the pro experience been for you so far with the Moose?
Been awesome, living the dream. Obviously, this is something I've look forward to my whole life, and obviously it's a big step in my career. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far, and it's been going pretty great.
You have such an interesting background in that, you were born in Russia, played there young, but came over here quite early. For fans that, have heard your name, remembered when the Jets drafted you, but, don't know a lot about your story, take us back a little bit and give us your upbringing, when you came here, and kind of your hockey path that brought you here to Winnipeg.
Yeah, I was born in Moscow, Russia. I started actually playing hockey with Nikita Chibrikov, who is my line mate now, and it's a lot of fun with him. And yeah, I moved to Toronto, Canada when I was 9 years old. I was here for a camp for 2 weeks, and a coach just saw me and asked me to play the following season. So my whole family moved, and now we reside in Oakville, Ontario, just outside of Toronto.
What was it like? So young. We hear a lot of Russians come over, there may be 16 or 17 playing a year in the OHL. I mean, 9 years old is pretty darn young to be making a move, especially for hockey.
Yeah, I think at that age, you don't really, understand what's going on. You just kind of do what your parents tell you to do. So I think the language barrier was probably the hardest thing to overcome, but, it came by pretty quickly for me. And obviously I think I'm okay at it now. So no issues there, but yeah, it's been obviously an adjustment, but it's been going great.
Playing in, listen, we know there's the hockey scene in Ontario is wild. I mean, there is an incredibly competitive minor hockey circuit. And then, of course, you've got the OHL. What were those early years like before you then kind of graduated to being a star for the Guelph Storm and then finishing up in Kitchener?
It was awesome. I think, in your bantam minor midget kind of OHL draft here, you don't really realize what's going on until you hear these rankings come out and stuff like that. And then, the pressure is on you to perform at such a young age. And, the mental side of hockey comes into that as well. And yeah, I was lucky enough to get drafted by the Guelph Storm, an unbelievable franchise who kind of raised me and got me to where I am today.
Well, and of course, speaking of being drafted, 2022, third round, 77th overall. What do you remember about hearing your name called by the Winnipeg Jets? That must have been something, Frankie, you've been working on probably since you came to North America.
Yeah, of course. I just remember there sitting anxiously waiting for my name to get called, and then Winnipeg came up and said my name, and I don't even remember walking down the stairs. I think I kind of blacked out. I think 30 minutes to an hour after, I kind of looked at the jersey that I'm wearing, and my dreams coming true. So it was a special moment for sure.
So you finished up last year in the Ontario Hockey League. Fill us in on what this offseason was like preparing to make that jump to professional ranks and being within the Winnipeg Jets organization.
Yeah, a little different. I think, now coming into pro hockey, you're kind of fighting for jobs, and, this is something you've worked for your whole life, and you don't want to let this chance kind of slip. So, kind of training with a chip on my shoulder and trying to do the best I can every single day, especially now, and, trying to stay in the lineup as a rookie every day.
You mentioned the mental challenges of a young player, and, we've talked about this project you've done before on the show, and it's great to have you here. I mean, you've worked with people for basically a program for younger people, looking at the challenges of mental health, especially as we talked about with the pressures on young players, particularly young high-performance athletes and hockey players with high expectations and the stakes being so high. I mean, tell us a little bit about how this came to be and how it's maybe helped you and helped others.
Yeah, I started an organization called Zhillkin's Vision in August of 2022. I was with my girlfriend, Lauren Shaw. She's currently studying a doctor in sports psychology at James Madison University. So she's got kind of that sports psychology background as well. And me being a professional athlete, we thought it would be, pretty cool to combine our platforms together to show people how mental health, it's a really big thing, not just hockey, but other sports as well. So we've gotten tremendous support. We've raised $1,300 with a jersey raffle that we did in a Guelph Storm game back in October of last season. So all that money went to Canadian Mental Health Association, and we've been to many other events where we spoke about mental health. So it's been awesome to work with Lauren so far, and it's been going great.
And that is something that, of course, is very close to the entire True North family with the Project 11 that I'm sure you've learned about with Rick Rippon. But on a personal level, what's it like to have a girlfriend that's a sports psychologist? How much has she helped you? I mean, at this point when you're, when you're cutting your teeth and you're moving up into a very new stage of your professional career.
Yeah, a ton. She's been awesome. It's, super thankful and proud of her for doing what she's doing there. And this is her third degree now. That's going to be when she graduates. So yeah, she's a big help for sure.
Danny Zhilkin's with us from the Manitoba Moose. Let's talk about now what's happening on the ice with the club. How have you found that the graduating from the OHL just to the AHL, the biggest differences and the biggest challenges for a young player getting used to the pro game?
I think the biggest thing is just speed and strength. The guys here are so much faster and so much stronger than in the corners. If you're kind of lose a footing on a guy, he's going to be gone and you're not going to be able to catch him. So I think the biggest thing is just the speed and the strength for sure.
What about the how would you compare the travel and just the routine? I mean, as well as going from a more veteran drafted player in the OHL to being amongst a bunch of young players, which is probably pretty cool to be part of this Moose team this year.
Yeah, for sure. It's a change, of course, coming and being a rookie again. It's like my first OHL year, kind of flashbacks from that. But the veteran guys have made it pretty easy for us. They're super helpful, and our travel is grade A. We always fly everywhere to games, and we get great hotels and great meals as well. So.
You mentioned Nikita Chibrikov. You guys go way back to when you were tykes learning the game back in Russia. You played with him quite a bit. What was the reunion like when you guys got together for the first time, and how's it gone playing with him for the better part of this season in your first 15 games pro?
It was cool. He actually texted me right after I got drafted because he was drafted the year before. So it was cool to see that. And he said kind of, we might play on the Jets together one day, but here we are in the Moose now. And yeah, it's been awesome to play with him. He's super smart, skilled player, and yeah, it makes it pretty easy to play with him.
I imagine the connection between you guys, is something unique. I mean, it goes back. I'm not sure how much you're remembering from your Mighty Mite days as 8-year-olds or whatever back in Russia, but for a player like of your mold that has scored at a high level, that tries to do everything right. He's a guy that certainly has an offensive punch, but also has quite a bit of a bite to his game. I mean. How does he help you guys do what you're trying to do when you're out there on a line, regardless of whether you're with Bon Giovanni or Jeff Murat, another great veteran on the club?
Yeah, I think a good thing about him is obviously, as you say, he's super skilled, but he's not afraid to go into the to the dirty areas and dig the puck out. So yeah, he's not only super skilled and smart, he gets the puck as well. So that makes it pretty easy for us to play.
Danny, tell us about just the Moose room this year. I mean, a lot of talented young drafted Winnipeg Jet prospects playing with the club. Certainly some great veterans. I mean, what's it like being a Moose right now, and the dynamics within that locker room with a lot of young guys as well as some guys that I'm sure you're learning a lot from every day?
It's awesome. I think, we have a pretty tight group in there, and it's always fun and jokes in the room. And, we're a pretty tight group. I think for our, younger players like myself, we're kind of all in the same step in our career, kind of, first games as pro. So we're hoping to all one day play for the Jets, and we're kind of creating those relationships early.
Do you have is there a crew of young guys that are all like 19, 20, 21 that, you live together and hang out together when you're here in Winnipeg?
I think there's a few guys who live together. I think Kuzmin and Chibrikov live together there. And I think there's not many other guys who live together, but we're always around together. Knyazov, him and his wife had us over for dinner a couple of times, all the Russians. So it's pretty special group.
How have you enjoyed Winnipeg so far?
It's been awesome. I think the people are great. The food's great wherever I go to eat. So it's a cool place.
Do you have any go-tos? I mean, have you already discovered, a favorite restaurant or two that now you're telling the other guys, you got to come here with me?
I think Frankie's in the west side of town. I think it's a pretty good place, Italian.
Yeah. Shout out to our pal Joe Aiello. He'll love that little dap from Danny Zhilkin on the program. Club coming back at home. You had a big road trip. Finished it off with a win. How's the week been preparing to get back at it coming up against this weekend again, Friday night and a Sunday afternoon tilt against a team you guys play quite often in the Rockford Ice Hogs?
Yeah, they're a fast, skilled team. I think we've been struggling in our G zone and our kind of neutral zone a little bit, so I think we're tightening that up, and I think we can compete with those guys for sure. I think we haven't done the way we want to against them, and we have a ton of skill and talent on our team as well. So I think if we stick to our defensive side of the game, I think we can compete with them.
Danny, listen, this has been a lot of fun having you on the program for the first time. Wishing you and the squad good luck on Friday and on Sunday afternoon and the rest of this season. And we'll be looking forward to following your progress throughout this year in the American Hockey League. And we'll look forward to chatting again some point soon at the rink and here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Thanks a lot for doing this, and all the best going forward.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Good
stuff. There's Danny Zhilkin and the Manitoba Moose on WST. Shout out to our pal, the Fink, Daniel Fink, who helped us set that up. And, of course, Daniel will have the call, all games available at moosehockey.com. And I wouldn't be surprised. I should have checked this before. But quite often when there's a Sunday afternoon game, Fink will be cranking that out on the airwaves of the Superstation 680 CJOB as well. As we mentioned, we do have the games this Friday night, Rockford at Manitoba, and Sunday afternoon, December 3rd. And I'm pretty sure that this is the Christmas game where there's going to be free picks with Santa and whatnot. So if you're thinking about a good game to bring the kids out to, think about the game on Sunday afternoon. And Remo, we do actually have some tickets to give away. I meant to send those to you before. I will shortly, but another good reason for people to sign up for the newsletter, I'd suggest.
Yeah, so this Sunday's game is RCMP 150. The holiday game is December 15th. We can get photos.
Oh, the 15th. Okay, sorry.
With Santa. That's okay. Friday. This Friday is the Hockey Fights Cancer game in support of Camp Quality. And I don't think we mentioned this. I know you and Murat did, but the True North ceremony for the Hockey Fights Cancer is A plus every year. Hard not to get emotional watching it, but they raise a lot of money for Cancer Care Manitoba Foundation. It's really
God. You know what? Just you mentioning that is bringing me back to being in the arena last night. And
yes.
I mean, Jay Richardson cranking out the descriptions of what these young children have been through. And again, I mean, you now probably think of this differently with your little ones, but
for sure.
I mean, to wrap your head around the battles that some of these young kids have been through. I mean, it is, put it this way, that I don't think there were very many dry eyes in the place last night. And, it is it's phenomenal, and I would say this, like a lot of this stuff is sort of taken a backseat because of all the other BS around what the rules have done this year with the reaction to everything that happened last year, and they're not wearing the jerseys anymore. And unfortunately, I mean, and I said this right when they made that decision, I was afraid that was going to take away from nights like this. And it was totally unnecessary at the same time. But even without those jerseys, and I knew they did do a jersey auction, I think because the game went so late, they raffled those off right at the end as well. But the job that, the Jets, the Moose, True North have done for this has always been A+. And yeah, that, as much as it was disappointing to lose that game for Jet fans walking out, I think everybody realized that when you go through a presentation, hearing the stories of those young warriors, it puts it into perspective. Not that we shouldn't all have perspective on what we love, which is, following our teams and going to games and taking it all in. But it also makes you just feel how lucky you are wherever you are right now if you haven't had to have battles like that, especially at such young ages.
Yeah, I mean, as a young parent myself, I can't imagine having to go through that, watching your kids, have that type of rough experience, having cancer. It's you definitely got emotional. And again, the True North, they do that ceremony, and Jay Richardson telling the stories there. It's heartbreaking seeing that stuff, and getting
It is a lot of those stories, though. As much as it's horrible to hear about what these young people were going through, kind of finished up with some real positive trajectory and directions. Although, as we know, many times those battles don't stop for years and years and years. And the young ones will keep fighting. And obviously, any way you can support it, please do. So the Hockey Fights Cancer on the Moose side of things coming up on Friday.
Yeah, and going back, to mention the newsletter too. Yeah, we'll have notifications on that, or I'll tweet out the link when we have it up. If you want to get in on some Moose tickets for this weekend, so
you bet. Stay on top of that. You can always head over to winnipegsportstalk.com/contest as well. Though for tomorrow, you got one more chance to enter for the Linden jersey. Big marble race tomorrow, a special edition marble race on Thursday. I have to thank Nick and Nikki DQ, by the way. Nick, always there for us since day one. They're going to be putting together some delicious DQ ice cream treats that we'll have for our guests, along with that Boston pizza at the holiday event next Wednesday at Little Brown Jug. Link in the description. Grab your tickets now. We'll see you there. Big WST party finishing up 2023 with the whole gang there. In the meantime, you want to support Nick and Nikki DQ by chowing down on some delicious DQ product. You know where to get it. DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, DQ Niverville, and don't forget the new Pita Pit in Niverville as well. If you got catering needs, hit them up on Twitter or Instagram at Pita Pit Niverville. All right, slow night tonight, and we'll get to the Coolbet lines in a second, Remo, but we do have a little bit of Gabriel Vilardi today, who always a good sign when they're speaking to the media. That means they're just about ready to go.
Yeah, we went over the lines at the start of the show. He was practicing on the fourth line with Gustafsson and Barron. Notably, we didn't mention this before, he was practicing on the top power play with Scheifele, Ehlers, Vilardi, Connor, Morrissey, and Cole Perfetti moved on to power play 2. We'll have to see how that looks, but positive sign, and he spoke to the media. I think that it indicates that he's probably going to be in tomorrow against Edmonton, but I think this is the first time that he's spoken for a while and, discussed the frustration with being out, but also had some comments on the hit itself, that I think people would want to hear.
Yeah, well, let's do it. It's been a while since we heard from Gabriel Vilardi. Had a great chat with him at training camp on Winnipeg Sports Talk on the trade and being here. Had that great start, and now has had to watch his team do quite well in his absence right now. Here's Vilardi on just the frustration that comes with that injury.
Yeah, every time you get hurt, it's frustrating no matter who you're playing. But I was excited, and then that's how it goes, though.
Was it just, in your eyes, just kind of a freak accident, freak play, the kind that can sort of happen in a contact sport?
I think you could say that, but at the same time, no, I don't. Personally, I think it was kind of a play that doesn't need to happen, but what am I supposed to do now?
Was it disappointing that's a former teammate of yours, a guy who played with you for 4 seasons?
No, I played with him a lot. He's done a lot of little things like that. It's stuff that, you guys say it's an awkward fall. It's not an awkward fall. It's someone pushing your feet out from the back. My knee gets caught under me and then he tackles me. It's that simple. I was pretty close to being gone for the rest of the season, so it's frustrating to look at stuff like that and think about it. Obviously, I don't think his intent is to hurt me, but when you make plays like that, it's a stupid play, and it's frustrating to think that guy sits in the box for 2 minutes and then I have to deal with what I've dealt with for the past month and a half, but that's life. Now I'm here and looking forward to playing again, just having fun again. It's tough when you're by yourself and recovering. Sorry, go ahead.
Did Blake reach out to you?
That's between me and him, and I'm not going to get into that.
That was a hell of a soundbite from Gabriel Vilardi. He is pissed off, and I can't blame him. It was a very reckless, dangerous play, I thought, by Lizotte. And we knew that the potential was there, as Gabriel Vilardi said, to potentially be out even longer than the 6 weeks that he was. I remember we were on the show the next day, or 2 days afterwards when we got the word that it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks. And we said on this program, that kind of feels like best case scenario because of how dangerous it was, Reem.
Yeah, these are some quotes, and they're saying, "Hey, was it a freak accident?" He says, just to repeat, "I think it was a play that doesn't need to happen. I played with him a lot. He's done a lot of things like that. Not an awkward fall. Someone pushing your feet out from the back. My knee gets caught under me, and he tackles me. And yeah, you could see by the way he fell back, going after the knee. And again, we thought, as you said, we thought we were there. We thought he was out for a long time. I mean, 4 to 6 weeks." Was, I think best case scenario for a fall like that. Thankfully he's back, but certainly a lot of frustration there. And you love to hear a player express that. I do wonder when they said, "Did Lazat reach out to you?" And he took the high road and said, "It's between me and him." I do wonder if there was some discussion there, or if anything, what was said. I mean, I don't know. Do you text a guy and be like, "Man, what the hell are you doing to me?" If you played with them, I don't know if they were friends or not.
Sorry about that, man. And he'd be like, "Yeah, bleep you. That was bullshit." And the other thing, I mean, keep in mind, this is 3 games into a new start with a new team after just being traded. And the other thing that stood out to me with that, Remo, was just how, like, he kind of mentioned how hard it was being alone. I mean, we kind of joked about him going on that road trip a few weeks ago, like, hey, nobody misses the road trip. But, just from a mental health perspective, being in a new place and a new team with new teammates, and, they're playing well, guys are playing in your spot, and you're basically rehabbing from something that you're still angry about. That can't be an easy situation. Great to know that Gabriel Vilardi is going to be good to go and get back in. We do have one more quote, and this is, Vilardi just speaking more about the frustration of the injury and being away from the team.
Yeah, it's just bad timing. I mean, it was my second game. I missed most of the preseason because of the flu that was going around. It's good to see the teams winning, but at the same time, it's tough being the guy that you're on the outside, kind of looking in almost. Obviously, everyone does their best to make you feel like you're part of the team, and you feel part of the team. But yeah, I am a new guy. It would have been nice to come in and get familiar and play and get comfortable, as opposed to not playing. I haven't played hockey. These guys are 20 games in, and I really haven't done much yet.
There was that 6 to 8 week timeline, and it looks like you're close to kind of the tail end of that, the 8 weeks. As you say, you could have been a lot worse, right? So was there almost a sense of relief to go with the frustration?
Well, it was 4 to 6. I had 6 weeks yesterday. Everyone heals differently. I mean, it's tough for me to say. Do I wish I was one of the guys that came back after 4 weeks? Yeah. It's taken me 6 weeks. I'm still dealing with some stuff that I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of the year, and that's part of playing hockey. Everyone deals with those types of things. But yeah, it is what it is. It takes time, and you got to just go through the process.
Rick talked about a brace and getting familiar. Is that sort of an odd feeling, I guess, to have that? And is that, when you say about the rest of the year, is that something you're going to have to skate with all year?
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal. I mean, I'm sure some of you guys have worn braces for other sports. I mean, you play hockey without a brace your whole life, and then you're getting asked to put something under your gear that you're not comfortable with. So yeah, it is important to find the right brace and make sure it fits. For some guys, it's easier than others. Maybe I got a little bit of I say like OCD. It bugs me. So there's been that battle with the AT guys, but I have to wear it, and they've been really good in helping me and getting the right brace for me.
All right, there's Gabriel Vilardi, who looks like is ready to return tomorrow night against the Edmonton Oilers. We'll get confirmation from Rick Bowness on that tomorrow morning. And look forward to seeing him right back in the lineup. Of course, our first WST game was when that incident happened in that game against the Kings in the third game of the season. Now the Jets get into the second quarter of the year with Gabriel Vilardi back. And I appreciated his frankness with those comments, Reem. I mean, we had a real good time chatting with him earlier in the season. He seemed like a really cool guy, had a lot of time for us. But there's a lot of guys that will just, sort of give you a few cliches or not give you much. He was very clear, and that is about as honest and as angry a guy you've heard coming back from from injury, and you can only hope that propels him to get right back to where he was before he left, which was looking pretty damn good with 55 and 81.
Yeah, the Jets play the Kings December 13 in LA. I don't know if there's going to be some type of revenge or dropping the gloves or anything, but you can tell that he's a guy who's very frustrated with the situation, being out, being away from the team. And you did mention, we joked about him going on the Vegas trip, but yeah, no one wants to sit at home rehabbing by yourself. That sounds not fun. What's more fun? Going out with your teammates on the road. So.
Well, and a brand new team. I mean, this is sort of a real chance to get to know these guys, and you go to battle with them each and every night. And I mean, the hardest thing I'm sure was, the rehab and not being able to play. But, that sort of feeling of isolation as we sort of got from that was something that he obviously needed to overcome. But the good news is Gabe is back, and hopefully, tomorrow's game will go a heck of a lot better than the last time we saw him out on the ice against the Los Angeles Kings, his former team. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, road game, December 13th. That is not too far away. It'll be an interesting one to see whether there might be a little bit more reaction from the Winnipeg Jets than we saw that night back at Canada Life Center. All right, we've got some real interesting numbers and stats from our Spotify rap numbers, but first off, let's quickly get to the Coolbet Lines. We've only got 3 games in the NHL tonight. A very, very short slate of games. The Columbus Blue Jackets home to the Montreal Canadiens, and the Columbus Blue Jackets are winning some games lately, Reem.
Yeah, Blue Jackets, Canadiens. Didn't they have a big win over Boston earlier this week? So we'll see how they do. They're at home to Montreal, and I mean, I'm looking at the point totals here for like Johnny Gaudreau and Patrick Laine. I don't think that's what they thought they were getting when they signed for Gaudreau and traded him. I mean, Laine, he's got 3 goals in 13 games, only 5 points. And he's paired with Fantilli. They tried him at center, wasn't working out. And Johnny Gaudreau, how about these numbers? What was he bench? He's got 11 points in 23 games. This is after having 115 and 82 in 2021-22 before signing that big deal with Columbus. Interestingly enough, we didn't talk about this, but the Athletic put out there, there's Columbus having another rough season. The Athletic put out their trade board. This is the first trade board of the year, Huss. And look who's on it. A number of Blue Jackets, and you can tell which teams are not doing well by how many players they have on this trade board. But they have Adam Boquist, Andrew Peeke, and let me scroll down all the way to number 25, Patrick Laine. And Chris Johnson doesn't offer any. Oh no, there is commentary on. There is commentary. Sorry. Just saying.
Say about Laine?
Just saying, no one is happy in Columbus right now. Laine is a goal scorer who isn't scoring at his usual rate. No coincidence that his shooting percentage is well off his typical career average. And a contract of his size would be challenging to move in a flat cap environment since it extends 2 years behind this one. However, 6'5" wingers with Laine's offensive ability aren't in ready supply. They need to guard against potentially selling an asset at a depressed price, but they're also in no position not to listen if someone comes calling.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people that have been saying, the Jets need to get Laine back.
His salary's not workable. $8.7
makes almost
million.
$9 million.
It's not. It's not. You're not trading for that guy when he's got 3 goals in 13 games. Like, I know he was injured too, but I don't think you can trade for him at that salary.
Well, there's the cap. Yeah, the cap issue is the biggest thing. I mean, hey, if you can get him at 50 cents on the dollar, sign me up. But how does that work? Where does he go? Which forwards that have been playing really well for the Jets are the odd guys out? So again, we won't spend too much time on that. So Blue Jackets minus 129. I like Columbus to keep it rolling tonight. The Rangers are at home to the Wings, minus 193. Detroit plus 162 on the money line. And the Kings, who've won 5 in a row, they're at home, minus 203. The Caps are plus 171. I'm actually going to sprinkle on the Caps tonight. They had that ugly loss in San Jose. I think they kind of get it together. They'd been really good over the course of the 10 games leading up to their last couple losses to Edmonton and San Jose. Big one for Washington tonight. If you're looking for an underdog, let's take the biggest one on the board with Washington. Now, in the lock shop today, Dusty and I kind of thinking about, do we do just a straight up gamer? No, let's get into some shot totals. So here's our partner parlay today if you want to jump on with us. Lucas Raymond playing on that top line in Detroit, but for how long we will see. Patrick Kane's going to probably be jumping in next week. I have a feeling he'll be shooting the puck and trying to get on board. So we've got Lucas Raymond over 1.5 shots on goal. We've got Kevin Fiala over 2.5 shots on goal. And for you Line A fans, and I know there's many of you in the chat, we're going to jump on Patty to get over 2.5 shots on goal, something that he hadn't done in at least 4 games, I guess, since, coming off of his benching. But in that Boston game, you could tell Line A was feeling a little bit more. 5 shots on goal tonight. So even if you want to just take a shot prop by itself, Patrick Line A, and I might even jump on what's his goal? What's his goal prop today? Let's see here. Player goals. Patrick Line A plus 180. They've got to start coming. They got the Habs at home. They've won 3 of 4. Might be a further investment in Line A and the Blue Jackets tonight.
It's funny how he hasn't really scored, but he's the Jacket with the lowest odds to score or best, so the books still think
it's because he's Patrick Line A.
Yeah, they still know the talent, the books, even if he hasn't put it together this year.
Hey, one other thing for Coolbet, if you head over there, by the way, Lock Shop is over at Edmonton Sports Talk. Grab that whenever you want to check it out and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get pods. The Hero World Challenge goes this week. Tiger Woods is back. They've got a bunch of Tiger Woods props, which I'll touch on in just a second. But we do have, if you go to the exclusives and click on Hero World Challenge specials, this is such a weird tournament because there's only like 20 guys in it. So we, at the start of the season, there's no recency of how these guys are playing. So we jumped on Max Homa, who's a favorite of ours. Dusty's taking it. And my guy, Tony Finau, 7-1 on either Finau or Homa to win the Hero World Challenge. And then Pat has had some great golf specials and parlays lately. Vic Hovland has won this tournament the last 2 years. He's got Victor Hovland to finish top 5 and Tiger Woods to finish higher than Will Zalatoris. And of course, Zalatoris missed the entire season last year. This is his first event back. That one's at plus 285. You get that in the Hero World Challenge specials or the golf boosted odds. And as far as the World Challenge overall, as I mentioned, Victor Hovland is the favorite with at 4-1. Scotty Scheffler 5-1. But they've got a bunch of Tiger specials. So if you're a Tiger guy and you just want to focus in on Tiger, Tiger Woods round 1 score over under 71.5. The over's plus 110. The under's minus 154. Tiger round 1 birdies or better at 3.5. Over is minus 154. Under's plus 110. And Tiger's finishing position over under 16.5, minus 118. There's also an interesting head-to-head. Tiger's the lowest ranked player at 66-1. Lucas Glover is next at 50-1. You can get Tiger at plus 130 to finish better than Lucas Glover as well. So if you've been jonesing for some golf odds and some golf to bet on, the Hero World Challenge and Tiger Woods is back. We'll be paying attention to that this weekend. Of course, if you haven't played a Coolbet before, use that promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. We'll get ready in the Lock Shop tomorrow. If you're available at noon before WST, jump into that program. There's going to be a lot of Jets Oilers talk tomorrow between myself and Dusty. And you know what side I'll be coming in on, what side he'll be coming in on. So it should be a heck of a lot of fun. And we'll have a few exclusives tomorrow as well. All right, Remo, before we finish up the show, fill us in on what we've learned from the Winnipeg Sports Talk Spotify Wrapped Summary for 2023.
I don't know if everyone's on Spotify, Huss, but this is the best part about being on Spotify. It's where I listen to my music. They send at the end of the year, they send you something called Spotify Wrapped, where it just tells you a summary of all the music and stuff you listen to, your top artists, top songs. Mine's kind of wrecked because I play a lot of songs with my son in the car, so it's kind of like a family.
Oh yeah, you're screwed.
Mine's screwed. Yeah, mine's screwed. Like, it's not good. So
the Wiggles top 5.
Yeah, no, we're not into Wiggles. We never really got into it, thankfully. I got kind of weirded out by the whole thing, to be honest. But anyways, so they tell you they have one for podcasters too, which is cool. So it gives us some nice analytics on the year, which we could probably look up, if we want. But it's nice getting in an email with a fun presentation. So Huss, here is on Spotify our top episode of 2023. What do you think that it could be? Our top episode?
I would guess by Spotify downloads.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to guess the show in Nashville when Dubois got traded.
Now, that was our best show on YouTube. I would agree, and I was surprised, but I think this makes sense. Our top show on Spotify, episode 651, Scheifele and Hellebuck signed 7-year extensions.
That was. That was a wild show, and I think for anyone that was downloaded, or I would imagine there's probably a lot of people that maybe found us that way too. But yeah, when we look back, when we do our year in review, the Dubois trade was massive, but I'm not sure there was a bigger day for this organization or this program than the day after Thanksgiving to announce and kind of dive into Scheifele and Hellebuck committing for 7 more years.
Yeah, well, I think it was your Instagram reel / TikTok / Twitter post of you in the Target grocery store. I think that really brought a lot of awareness to our show, and that show on Spotify in particular, 192% more streams on that one than our average episode. And I'll share some other tidbits or some other highlights. Yeah. New fans on Spotify. Let's see. I was surprised at this. 39% of our Spotify listeners discovered us in 2023.
Nice.
I didn't. So welcome
aboard, new Spotify listeners of WST.
Yeah, I'm a big Spotify guy for podcasts. I know most people use Apple Podcasts, but I'm always on Spotify. And shout out to Garrett Soloway in chat. He says, "Kids Spotify music messed up mine too." Okay, and which episode? The largest number of new listeners found us on which episode? And you would think maybe the Dubois, right?
Yeah, I think of Dubois as sort of the biggest event, and I guess maybe just because we skew towards what we see on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. But no. Jets eliminated from the playoffs. Rick Bonus sounds off. Really brought in a lot of new listeners. So
pushback.
Yeah,
the pushback episode.
The pushback episode. So I guess we're wrapping up 2023, and there was one more tidbit they gave us that I wanted to mention. Oh, this one was kind of interesting. It says we're streamed in 30 countries. Canada was our top country, of course, 94% of our total streams.
That checks out.
You would think, USA number 2. What do you think number 3 was?
I'm going to guess Australia. There seems to be, a lot of Winnipeg expats, hockey fans. We always seem to get, some correspondence from some listeners out. I'm going to go with Australia.
Yeah, I was surprised. Schickster in chat is guessing Finland. This one was news to me from Spotify. Here we go. Most new listeners this year in Chile. So shout out to everyone in Chile listening to us. That's awesome. Welcome.
We may have to maybe have to go down to Chile and do a special show, considering the traction that we've got with new Chilean podcast listeners on Spotify of Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Yeah, I would have never guessed. And here, I'll try to find one more tidbit. Oh yeah, so which episode, was the most shared episode of Winnipeg Sports Talk on Spotify? This one was very interesting to me. Again, I think Dubois, we feel like, was a pivotal point in the year for the
Dubois,
podcast.
Pushback.
Mm-hmm.
I know someone, Reg Dunlap, said, what about the show after the Grey Cup?
Yeah.
Definitely not, because there was a lot of Bomber fans that are here all the time that probably took a day off because they didn't want to have us just talk about losing the Grey Cup again for ours. I don't know. Which one was it?
All right. This was their most shared episode 517. Jets lose to Sharks. Bonus calls out players post-game. And this was at, the second half of the year last year. The playoffs seem to be slipping away. You're playing against the worst team, and they laid an egg. And you really brought it, the passion, that show. And obviously listeners felt the same way, sharing that over and over. And I think it was you who sparked the Jets to hang on and make the playoffs. Because go back, listen, I don't know.
I was hot that day.
You were hot. Yeah, you were hot.
Well, I mean, that was right at the point where the season was basically slipping away after a really ugly 6 to 8 weeks. And Bones, shout out to Bones. It's great to have him back. And I mean, the numbers don't lie. Some of Bones's highlights, or if you will, in front of the microphone, turned into our biggest shows over the course of the year. So big thanks to our Spotify listeners, all of our podcast listeners, all of our YouTubers. But it's very fun to kind of get these sort of numbers, and obviously very thankful for all the new listeners and everyone that's joining us, however you're finding us every day as we continue to roll with WST, approaching 3-year anniversary coming up in March. I cannot believe that.
Yeah, I can't believe it either. Showed it to a number of listeners. We enabled memberships, I think, almost 2 years ago. And some of the people are closing in on a 2-year membership. Spency said to me, you thought, and I was like, I don't have anything for 3 years. I was like, I didn't think it would last this long. And Spency's like, what, you thought this would be like a year thing? I was like, I thought we were going to do this for like 2 months. And I find a new job. So after we got let go. So it is incredible that, we're approaching 3 years. You got such a great community here. Thankful every day that we can come here, Huss, and do this. And when Spotify puts these numbers together and shows them to us, it kind of hits home, because like you and I just feel, all the time, I just feel like you and I are having this conversation. There's a couple people in the like chat every day, but there's so many more people listening who are in here. So we very thankful for everyone. We do hope to see as many as we can. Tomorrow night at the Jets game? Yeah, come say hi. And
316 bar before the game. We'll be there early, and you can, if you are coming, you can get in there at 5:30. I believe they'll open the doors. You got to come in that north, the entrance basically coming out of City Place on the second level, and then next Wednesday, of course, is just going to be the big holiday spectacular. Some beer, some pizza, ice cream, some Czechs bubble hockey, hopefully, and just some great revelry, and of course all to team together to raise some important funds for the cheerboard, who are doing such important things in our community at this time of year.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of raising funds, as we wrap up, we did get a one Movember donation during the show.
Nice.
We received a donation to Darren Chalice. He says, cheers, Huss and Remo, part of my community. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you, Darren.
Beautiful. Thanks to Darren. And I know Darren actually has seats next to me and my folks in 206. My folks were there, so they were sitting beside Darren last night, but really appreciate that. One more day to donate. Well, today and tomorrow. And again, tomorrow will be our marble race for the Trevor Linden jersey and the Prairie Naturals supplements product from Canada's #1 men's health brand, Prairie Naturals, and our friends at Vita Health. So if you haven't already, get on over to winnipegsportstalk.com/contest. Get your name in. We will spin the wheel tomorrow during the show, grab a couple more marbles, and then drop them and see who the winner of this great prize is. Great show today. Wow, 3:20.
It's late.
We got to get these pods up for all our Spotify listeners and, of course, everyone on Apple Pods. But big thanks to Danny Zhilkin. Nice to chat with him today. Ted Wyman, and a great spot with Murat. If you joined us late, make sure to get back to the beginning of the program and check that out. 1 week today, We'll see you at Little Brown Jug, but get your tickets in advance. Every cent is going to the cheerboard. Raise a little money for that and have a great time getting together around the holidays, talking Jets, fantasy football, and all that when we see you then. But otherwise, all you WSTers, get a good sleep tomorrow or tonight, because tomorrow we got to bring it. Jets and Oilers. We'll be all over it on the show tomorrow, and we will get together as a group in the WST section for tomorrow night's game. Cannot wait for it. Thanks to Michael Remis, and thanks to all of our sponsors that make this show happen every day, and most importantly, all of you for joining us. Have a good one tonight. We'll get you ready for a big game day with the Jets and Oil going at it tomorrow night at 1 p.m. We'll see you there, WST. We're out.
Oh, my God! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.